Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be running a few minutes late. Our chairman's a little bit behind. If you want to speak tonight and have not signed in, please go back to the back and sign on the appropriate page. And if you don't want to speak but you want to represent your opinion, you can still sign up on that sign-in sheet back there.
I haven't heard. Okay, ready? Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. This is a special meeting, Thursday, December 19, 2024. I'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Zamora.
Here.
Harmon.
Here.
Boutros.
Here.
Larson. Whitbeck.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum, so moving on with the agenda. Is there any conflict of interest declaration from any commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on. There are no special presentations. Takes us to item 5 on our agenda, which is consent calendar. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Commissioner Whitbeck.
Second.
I think I heard Commissioner Harmon as a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. So move on to item 6, which is a review of our proceedings, our opening statement. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission serves in a quasi-judicial manner, which involves consideration of land use requests such as an
Mr.
annexation.
I believe you separately have to approve the minutes of the November 13th hearing.
Nope, they were part of the consent calendar, so they were done in block. This is a quasi-judicial hearing which involves a consideration of a land use request such as an annexation, rezone classification, or approval of a subdivision preliminary plat. The public hearing procedures as required by Idaho law are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included to the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. This is followed by public testimony. The applicant or the applicant's representative will present a summary of the request for no more than 10 minutes. Then followed by that, the testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in a neutral position, and finally those in opposition. No, all public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes or less. The applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony at that time, or after all public testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. Also going to ask the commission if they can hold their questions on the application until the applicant has had a chance to present, and or limit their questions of staff following their presentation to those they don't think the applicant will be able to answer in their own presentation. All right, with that, that takes us to old business. So with this, there's a request to move this item to, to move this item down to the second to last item that we would hear tonight. Is that correct? So it would still be heard tonight, just it would be moved down the docket a little bit this evening. Does that need to be a motion, or can that just be done?
It would be a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to move the old business item to second to the last.
I make a motion to move the
Commissioner-
old business item 1, action item 1 to the second to the last.
There was a motion from Commissioner Harmon. Is there a second?
Second?
Second for Commissioner Boutros. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. So that moves us on to new action item, and for this item, the staff is requesting continuance to the January 8th, 2025 meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, staff. We actually, as a misprint, we would request that it get continued to the February 12th hearing.
Okay. Okay. So if Commissioner is willing to make that motion, we can entertain that at this time.
So moved?
Commissioner Boutros,
Second.
second from Commissioner Whitbeck. Any discussion on moving into the February 12th meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so that moves us on to action item 2 of under new business. So I will declare this public hearing open. This is case number ANN 24-10, SPP 24-1. And with that, staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 205 South 6th Avenue. Before you is Farmway Crossing, ANN 2410 and SPP 2401. The project location is 44.13 acre parcel located on the southwest corner of Farmway Road and Ustick Road with frontage along both streets. The project site is currently surrounded by undeveloped land in all directions with some single-family residential to the east. The applications before you tonight are for an annexation of that 44.13 acres of land into the Caldwell city limits and a preliminary plat for a subdivision. Tonight's request consists of low-density proposal for annexation, with low density being the residential designation. And the purpose of R1 low-density residential zone is to provide areas for zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that preserves and enhances single-family residential neighborhoods at a low-density standard, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Such zones should have a full range of urban services available or projected to be established. The proposed development is surrounded by county land with low-density residential to the north and low-density residential and neighborhood commercial to the east. Staff finds low-density residential is a compatible zone next to other low-density residential and county land. The proposed comp plan designation and development as low-density residential is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan, and the proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed land use, single-family residential, is a permitted use within the R1 zone. The applicant's proposing a development consisting of 115 single-family homes. The proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with city codes, policies, and staff finds that the proposed development is in compliance with all parking and landscape requirements, all bulk standards for lot size, setbacks, frontage, and height of buildings, and the proposed development is in compliance with all zoning and subdivision ordinances. The proposed development will have adequate site access and all utilities are available or will be available as outlined in the engineering staff report. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had comments or concerns, Caldwell School District, they have capacity at the time, but they're hoping to work with the developer on timeline for the development, so buses and boundaries need to be discussed. They can do so. And Highway District 4 has comments that they hope the commission and council take into consideration. Boise Project Board of Control, they want the ditch that runs through the property to be unobstructed and protected if serving neighboring properties. And there were no public comments at this time. The following are site-specific conditions. At the time of building permit submittal, the height shall be no higher than 25 feet to the midpoint of each structure, which is in compliance with code. And staff recommends that if the commission recommends approval of the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was our staff report. Now we will turn it over to applicant Becky Izagiri. Please come on up. Please state your name and address into the record, and then you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. Becky Izagiri, 1144 South Silverstone Way, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. All right, so good evening. I'm here to present Farmway Crossing. The property is located on the southwest corner of Ustick and Farmway. The property is surrounded by R1 to the northeast and county residents to south and west. The property currently features a seasonal ditch running north-south, several existing structures near Farmway, and 2 driveway access points. Our plan includes piping and rerouting the seasonal ditch, as well as removing the existing structures and driveway accesses. Currently, the property sits in Canyon County and has a zoning designation of agricultural. We are requesting the property be annexed to R1 to match the existing R1 zones to the north and the east. The comprehensive plan and future land use map designate this area as low-density residential. Farmway Crossing will have a gross density of 2.58 dwelling units per acre, which falls within the allowed max of 3 units per acre. The subdivision has been designed as a low-density residential development with the zoning designation of R1 and a gross residential density of 2.58 dwelling units per acre. The 44-acre development will include 115 single-family lots, 24 common lots, with a total of 7.54 acres or 16% of qualified open space. The minimum lot size is 8,004 square feet with an average lot size of 8,746 square feet with a max of 13,896 square feet. This development will be developed in 3 phases, each in full compliance with the City of Code and Comprehensive Plan. So as you know, the city's been working to adopt a new comp plan. So if approved, this parcel will have a comp plan designation of community, commercial, and neighborhood 2. The new comp plan will allow for commercial and residential dwelling units and more residential dwelling units. Our development proposes far less density and will have less of an impact on the area. Here are the elevations for Farmway Crossing. We are proposing 1- and 2-story homes. These homes will have multiple material types, porches, pop-outs, providing visual interest in the exteriors of each home. The interiors will blend modern simplicity with comfort, rustic elements, creating functional and welcoming space. Farmway Crossing will include a 7.54 or 16.94% of qualifying open space, with a total of 9.4 acres of overall open space. The development will also feature a network of major and micro pathways that will provide strong connectivity throughout the subdivision. In addition to the open space and pathways, the development will include a central amenity with a picnic area, playground, and park benches along the 5-foot pathway. This development proposes to construct 11 new local roads with full access on both Ustick and Farmway. All new local streets will include curb, gutter, and a 5-foot attached sidewalk. In addition, we'll have an emergency access onto Ustick. Ustick Road will see full frontage improvements, which include a 25-foot landscape buffer, a 5-foot detached sidewalk, and an 8-foot parkway strip. Farmway will also see full frontage improvements, including a 25-foot landscape buffer, a 10-foot detached multi-use pathway, and an 8-foot parkway strip. In addition, we'll provide right-of-way for a loon and a future roundabout at Farmway and Ustick. The utilities will include a connection to an existing 16-inch water main in both Ustick and Farmway. For sewer, there's an existing stub in Farmway and an existing 12-inch sewer main in Ustick. The pressurized irrigation will connect to an existing water main on Farmway. Stormwater will include a large retention facility on the northeast corner of Ustick and Farmway with a smaller pond on the west side of the development. Both retention ponds will have grass in the bottom and will be built to the city code. Thanks for your time, and we hope we can make this a part of the Caldwell community.
Thank you.
I'll stand for questions.
All right, so at this time, commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Boutros.
This actually is for staff. So in the jurisdiction, excuse me, in the jurisdiction statement on page 1, it says that the property is currently located in Canyon County. This parcel is not located within the city's area of impact, but is shown on the comprehensive plan map. Could you review the ordinance regarding annexation into the city?
Planning and zoning, this is Morgan. Annexation is permitted provided it's within the comprehensive plan or planning area, even if it is outside the area of impact.
Okay, I apologize. I was under the impression that if something was outside the area of impact, it was not eligible. So thank you. I also noted that there was no communities in motion analysis included in this application.
Chairman, Commissioner, that is correct. They didn't submit one. Compass. Is that what you're referring to? Compass? Yes. Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for commissioners?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, I have several people who have signed up for public testimony. Dean White didn't indicate whether he wished to speak. Does Dean wish to speak? Okay, but was signed up in favor. I also have Todd Campbell signed up in favor, who does not wish to speak. Jean Slate does not wish to speak, and Delmar Slate do not wish to speak, all of whom are in favor. I have nobody else signed up in neutral or in opposition. So with that, I don't know, because I said your name right this time. I always get it wrong. Now, Izagiri. Now I'm questioning myself. Sorry about that. Would you like to state anything before we close? There is no other testimony, so now would be the natural time you would have a rebuttal or closing statement if you would like.
Well, I would like to thank staff. As always, they do an awesome job, and for you, the commissioners, to hear the case. Quality Homes, he cares about the community. He's from the community. Both of them are from the community. One is from Caldwell, and I am also from Caldwell. And we had actually sold a farm to a developer. And from time to time, I drive by that, and I take a look at the property, and I take a look at the homes that are built. And, you know, we're proud. We're proud that we created that opportunity for those folks. And we kind of want the property owners of Farmway Crossing to feel the same way. So thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, at this time, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Commissioner Boutros made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, now it's time for us as a commission to deliberate and make a decision. Comments from commissioners?
I'm ready
Oh, you're ready to,
to make a comment.
okay.
For a discussion, yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Boutros. I thought you were ready to
Okay.
make a motion.
So I extracted some short statements from the application. So quote, schools. The subject site is located within the Caldwell School District. The letter received from the district did show some concerns about the development out in this area, close quote. In the Caldwell School District summary statement on page 2, it says, quote, Caldwell School District asks the developer keeps in contact with the school in regard to moving school zones and with the bus company for bus stop locations. They are unsure about this being the right time or place to move forward with this development, close quote. So that was unusual. That's an unusual position by the school district, and it deserves close attention. So I also extracted from their letter this text. This is the actual text, quote, while we do recognize that this proposed development will increase the supply of much-needed housing in our community, it does not meet the goal of promoting infill and contributes to sprawl, moving development into valuable farmland. This may not be the right time to develop housing in this area, close quote. Quote, while this seems like a nice neighborhood plan, we question whether this is the right time or place for this to move forward, close quote. If you've seen previous letters from Caldwell School District, this is quite a strong statement for them. They normally provide just supportive statements. The traffic impact study. The intersections of Farmway and Highway 55 and Farmway and Simplot Boulevard are not mentioned in the traffic impact study. Traffic impact east on U-Stick at 10th Avenue, Montana Avenue, and the new roundabouts all the way to the intersection at U-Stick and the Boulevard is not mentioned. As I noted, there was no Communities in Motion submission. However, a similar development did have a Communities in Motion analysis which indicated this area is underserved for transportation, shopping, etc. That was a surprise to see that, because normally we see the Communities in Motion analyses supporting a development. But when we're talking at the extreme west of the city, there's not much there for residents to shop. Okay, so that's everything I had to say about that. I look at this and I think, I don't think this is worth supporting, and I won't be able to support this development. And now I'm done.
Thank you. I would like to respond to a couple of things, Commissioner Boutros, as we dialogue here as a commission. I did find the Caldwell School District letter interesting. And I think we also, and the idea of sprawl, the reality is the developments are already going that way, so it's not particularly sprawl. I would say when we consider the developments that have already been approved, it's probably going to be more of an infill than if anything else. If we consider what's developed around it, we can wait, 5 years, and then it would be an infill, or we, just can do this now while we're planning and moving forward. So I read that and caught that, but that was kind of my thought process around that. Insofar as the community in motion, just like with any of the other groups, they're certainly entitled to provide us information, and I certainly don't feel I could speculate on what their analysis is. I appreciate you finding something similar. I don't know which one that was or what the timing of that was, but just like in a lot of Caldwell, there isn't much shopping, and I think that's a truism for many of these areas and have been a conversation for this commission and some of the other developments that are occurring to really try to bring in more shopping opportunities. I could think about some that are not far from there that are anticipated. So those are, I guess, my comments. And with that, I am in support of this case or this item.
Yeah.
Other comments?
What was didn't the school district have something to say about, like, the time frame of it? Because, this development hasn't started, and it's probably a 3 or 4 or 5 year project.
I think that's generally true for any of the projects,
Yeah,
and
so,
yeah, they didn't mention.
yeah. So, I think as we see it go out that far, I'm with you, Alex. I see that we're all moving in the right direction. Farmway's getting some road stuff done now. I know Caldwell's working on This is for staff, right? Working on the water issue out there with drilling new wells. So I'm with you. I think it's good.
I agree that at first glance, it seems further out, but as we stated, it's not really, if you look forward. And there is significant shopping within a mile and a half. And it's growing west, so based on that, I would be in favor of it.
Other discussion from commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion at this time.
So
Commissioner
I'll
Harmon?
make a motion. Based upon the testimony and evidence and record in this matter and upon the findings and facts and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows: the request for annexation of parcel R32599000000 with a zoning designation of R1 low density residential and case number SPP 24-01 for a preliminary plat for Farmway Crossing subdivision. Recommend for approval, subject to the conditions of the approval as presented and amended.
Thank you. That was a motion from Commissioner Harmon. Is there a second?
Second?
Second for Commissioner Whitbeck. Roll call, please.
Harmon,
Yes.
Whitbeck,
Yes.
Boutros,
No.
Zamora.
Yes. And with that, motion carries, and we move on our agenda. All right. So that moves us on to action item, if you're looking at the current agenda, it would be action item 3. So I open this public hearing. This is case number ANN 24-12, CPM 24-4, and SUP 24-17. Staff report, please.
Just right there. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yep.
Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 205 South 6th Avenue. Before you tonight is Pinto Apartments, ANN 2412, CPM 244, and SUP 2417. The project location is 1.45 acre parcel located on the northwest corner of Midland Boulevard and Laster Street, having frontage along both. The project site is currently surrounded by single-family residential to the west, commercial to the north, undeveloped industrial to the east, and an approved subdivision to the south. The applications before you tonight are for an annexation of 1.45 acres of land into the Caldwell city limits, an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan future land use map, and a special use permit for multifamily land use and a height allowance to 45 feet to the midpoint. Tonight's request consists of the applicant's proposal for annexation with the initial zone of R3 zoning designation. The purpose of the R3 high-density residential zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that provide locations for medium to high-density residential development at a density consistent with the comprehensive plan. This type of zoning pattern is intended to provide transition or buffer areas between commercial uses and lower intensity uses, and to provide places for higher density uses in selected places of the city's neighborhoods. The proposed development is surrounded by community commercial to the north, residential professional within the Nampa city limits to the south, industrial within the city of Nampa to the east, and medium-density residential to the west. The current comprehensive plan designation is medium-density residential, and they're proposing a comp plan designation of high-density residential, and their project is consistent with high-density residential in the comprehensive plan, and the proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan for high-density residential. The proposed land use of multifamily development requires a special use permit, which is part of this request, along with the request to increase the minimum height to 45 feet to midpoint. The applicant's proposing a development consisting of 36 multifamily units, which has a density of 24.83 dwelling units per acre. The proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with city code policies and staff finds. The proposed development is in compliance with all parking and landscape requirements, all bulk standards for lot size, setbacks, frontage, and height of buildings, and the proposed development is in compliance with all other zoning ordinances. The proposed development will have adequate site access, and all utilities are available or will be available as outlined in the engineering staff report. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agency that had concern was the City of Nampa Planning and Zoning Department is not in support of this project due to the density of the project's request while being surrounded by Nampa single-family and industrial zones. And we did not receive any public comments at this time. The site-specific condition is as follows. Prior to city council, the applicant shall show all parking stalls not overhanging landscaping to be 9 by 20 feet on the site plan. And staff recommends that if the commission approves and/or recommends approval of the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, applicant or applicant's representative, you're welcome to come up to the mic for a presentation for no more than 10 minutes. Please state your name and address into the record, please.
My name is Craig Kolchak. I'm the representative to make the application for Hector Pinto on this project. My address is 4839 Mountain View Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83704. Just to kind of recap what Christie had mentioned. We're seeking an annexation with zoning of R3, the comprehensive map plan amendment and special use permit for this project. Pinto Apartments is a proposed development of 36 units located in the southwest corner of the future intersection of Laster Street and the North Midland Road at 17507 North Midland Road, Nampa, Idaho, consisting of 1.646 acres. Sewer access will be facilitated from Adams Rib subdivision, which is off to the west. And water will be extended as well from the future development to the west and northwest of the property. We're also requesting a height limitation of 45 feet. To the north of the project, it's zone C2. West of the project is Adams Ridge. Subdivision zoning is R2. South of the project is zone RP, Nampa, Idaho. Proposed residential is Esther. Subdivision number 3, east of project is zoned light industrial. The site will be fully landscaped with trees and shrubs lining the perimeter of the site. Most of the parking is in the rear of the site, so vehicles will be hidden from view. The unique proposed design of this 2 separate apartment buildings and entrance from the extension of Laster Street makes this project more appealing on a curbside view and is a standard apartment complex from one long single building. Public amenities relating to Pinto Apartments, the site will act as a transitional development and act as a buffer from the single-family development of Adams Ridge to the west. The completion of Pinto Apartments will give it surrounding developments a diversification needed for a healthy demographic reflecting into the vision and the planned growth of the city of Caldwell. In addition, the adjacent light industrial sites to the east and the community mixed use to the south, Nampa, Idaho, will enable kind of a live-work environment for the apartment residents and some homeowners. As such, this will give close-to-home jobs for the surrounding residents and affordability. Costco and St. Luke's are also employers availing employment within the mile of Pinto Apartments and the surrounding single-family homes. Pinto Apartments is a light infill project, and we look forward to moving forward with the approvals of this development. And I'm open for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, Commissioner, is there any questions for the applicants? My one question is, and just I'm looking at the zoning map and just seeing that this stands out starkly from, you know, the R2s and the other, and the commercial. I guess, help me understand like why this R3 is the most, you know, like how you came to the idea that the R3 would be the most reasonable within that,
Well, yeah, at
the neighboring
1.46
area.
acres, it really doesn't make sense for an R2 zoning because you've got an arterial right there. Normally, you'd either have like, the way I've seen developments happen, they have a commercial site, like a 7-Eleven or a Chevron or something like that. And having that right up against a development, residential development, really isn't kind of a way of transitioning into, commercial. This makes more sense. It's a lighter, less obtruse development. And the fact that, you've got basically R2, R3, and then the light industrial across the street kind of makes that transition make more sense. To the south, it's a residential, professional development. It's mixed use. It's not just residential. It's a mixed-use design. As far as Nampa goes, you're talking apples and oranges. This is Caldwell. Nampa made a mention that, they don't think it works with their development. But this isn't Nampa, this is Caldwell development, so I don't see any reasonable argument there. But as far as the transition goes, it makes more sense to have the R3 zoning rather than a stark transfer of commercial in that corner section there.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
You bet.
So we all have a couple others who signed.
One more thing. She rocks, all right?
She does. All right, we have Hector Reyes who signed up, but I don't know did not check if he wishes to speak or not speak. Nope, okay, but signed up in favor. Maide, B, did you wish to speak? No, okay, but also signed up in favor. So those were all signed up in favor. Nobody signed up in neutral. I have one person signed up, David Broom, who signed up in opposition and would like to speak. So David, if you would like, come on up. You have up to 3 minutes, please. But if you'd say your name and address into the record first.
My name's David Broom, 17,400 Midland Boulevard. Before my time starts, can you tell me the difference between R3 and R2?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. You certainly. Oh,
R3 is high-density residential and R2 is medium-density
And
residential.
this is medium, they're calling this medium?
No, they're calling it
high
high.
density.
Okay.
But
Is there a pointer here? Is this a pointer? So, I live right there, that triangle piece right here. Let me turn my clock on. So, I'm incredibly opposed to this right here. First off, you got Lasker Lane that only comes to right here. And so, all this is here, right here. You've approved 500 apartments right here. This used to be approved for 240 when they first started Adam Bridge, and they wanted that. You put some kind of like 500 apartments going to be right in this area. Here's where that parking shed is supposed to be, the 7-acre storage lot that they've approved. And now you're going to stuff 45-foot tall houses right next to this intersection here. This road right now, with all the construction on, you can't get out of my driveway right now. You're going to open up Lasker Lane to the left, which will maybe help some of it. Another thing you need to address is, when is Steel Falls going to open up the driveway onto Lasker Lane to allow some of that traffic flow to go there? You've got some incredibly bad traffic here, and you're going to approve this 45-foot tall structures right there on the corner. I'm completely opposed to it. The traffic is bad on Midland Boulevard. I'm sure the Steel Falls people don't really care for it. This other zone, the residential professional Nampa, that's slated for 250 apartments in the middle, 120, 150 houses, plus the other 10 acres in the bottom corner. So how do you justify stuffing all these apartments in every little corner? Nampa just put 275 across from the hospital, and they're getting ready to open. There's nobody in them yet. So the traffic is unbelievable. And you guys are just putting these here. Let's stuff 50 here. We're going to put a future 500 here. There's no roads yet to take this on. Yeah, I've lived there for 30-some years, and I've got the traffic now from Laster Lane East going into the Nampa, all the big buildings there. So, yeah, I'm opposed. I hope that you'll consider this. Nampa's got a reason they don't want it, the highway district. Right now, there's just no control on the traffic right there. So, I think I'll stop right there, 2 minutes and 39 seconds.
All right, thank you, Mr. Broom. So, that was the last individual who signed up, for public testimony. So at this time, the applicant is able to come on up for any rebuttal if you would like.
I can understand his concern about traffic. Part of the development's requirements is that the city of Caldwell has purchased 37 feet of right-of-way to extend Lassiter to the intersection of Midland Road. So right now, currently, there's no road there. You've got an eastern portion, but there's no western portion of Lassiter. Lassiter is going to be part of the recommendations and the requirements for that development and the residential development is to extend Lassiter to the east, to the intersection of Midland. So as far as the traffic is concerned, that'll be mitigated by the extension of Lassiter Lane. Does that help any? Nah, that doesn't help any. So that's my rebuttal to that. As far as millions of apartment complexes going up, it's the right infill for that particular piece of property is apartment complex. R2 does not make any sense because you've got an arterial there. It wouldn't meet the requirements for an R2. R3 makes that requirement acceptable. There you have it. Any other questions you might have?
Commissioners? All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, that ends our public testimony portion of this hearing, this public hearing. So I would entertain a motion to close public testimony at this time.
So moved.
Commissioner Boutros makes that motion. Is there a second? Second. Second for Commissioner Whitbeck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have now closed public testimony. It's an opportunity for us as a commission to deliberate. Commissioner Boutros.
Okay. So I wanted to address this topic of the letter from the City of Nampa Planning and Zoning. It's relevant to point out that the special use permit is for allowing a height greater than 25 feet, and Nampa Planning and Zoning pointed out that there is a single-family residential development immediately to the south of this parcel. That makes that special use permit inappropriate. So that's a very difficult thing to do. And I'll quote from staff comments. Staff has concerns with the density of this project at this location due to the distance from other R3 zoned properties and the letter from City of Nampa stating that the developments they have approved at this boundary are not compatible with this proposal. And elsewhere, it says the closest R3 zoning is about 1.33 miles away. So this is quite incompatible with the area. And like before, I can't support this.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Boutros.
I
Commissioner
think
Harmon.
I would agree. I just think it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I'm with you. I agree.
Thank you. I agree with that sentiment. Those were some of my concerns was the staff report and just to the commentary that in the question I asked, just when I look at the zoning map, just the inconsistency of it not being compatible with that area. So I agree with Commissioner Boutros that I'm not in support of this at this time. Any other discussion? All right, seeing no other discussion, I would entertain a motion at this point.
I can do that.
Commissioner Boutros.
Based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for the request for annexation of parcel R3086900000 with a zoning designation of R3 High Density Residential and a comprehensive land use map amendment to High Density Residential to include approval of Resolution 260-24 is recommended for denial because of incompatibility with the area.
Which would you like to add that second part right below it? It's for
The
this.
request for a special use permit for multifamily residential for Pinto Apartments is hereby denied for the same reason, incompatibility with the surrounding area.
Thank you. That was a motion for Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Commissioner Whitbeck. Roll call, please.
Boutros,
Yes.
Whitbeck,
Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes, and just for clarity, that the yes vote was to deny. So with that, the motion carries, and I will close this public hearing. We'll move on with our agenda to the next item. Let me pull it up here, which takes us to second to last item. So that takes us back to the amended section. So we will now move to, I'll open this public hearing. Case number ANN 24-6, SUB 24-22, SUB 24-23, SUB 24-24, SUB 24-25, SUB 24-26, 27, and PUD 24-4. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Dodson, Senior Planner here at the City of Caldwell. Thank you for saying all the mouthful of numbers. I will not repeat that because we all can read. Tonight is December 19th, and again, this is for annexation, PUD, and subdivisions, plural, for Verbena Ranch. The project encompasses approximately 282 acres south of Homedale and on both sides of 10th Avenue. The properties have frontage on Homedale and 10th, as well as a sliver of Montana at the very, very southeast corner of the property. The project will have additional frontage along Moss Lane and Bear Lane. Bear Lane will be on the very western boundary of the project. That's the collector street, and Moss Lane runs along the entire southern boundary of the entire development, and that's also a collector roadway. Conditions surrounding the subject site include a number of existing single-family residential developments, both to the north and to the east. There's a county subdivision to the south along Karcher, and there's existing undeveloped county land to the west as well, also to the north, and then annexed land but undeveloped also to the west, including Chickasaw further out to the west there. In the area, there are a number of approved developments, as you can see on the screen. Of specific note, I wanted to highlight number one, which is Element Ridge subdivision, which is in process as well to be, I don't think you guys have heard that yet, but it is in process. That's directly south of this project site. It'll be future. Falcon Ridge Elementary, also to the south, directly adjacent to Valley View Middle School. And then you have Karcher Commons along Karcher, number 3. It was heard earlier this year, if not late last year. Again, that's approved development. There's a number of other developments, as you saw and as highlighted in the staff report. There's a majority of them being single family of some kind. As far as the applicant request tonight, we have annexation of 282.5 acres with the R1 low-density zoning designation, a master PUD or planned unit development for the entire development, all 282.5 acres, and then 6 separate preliminary plats. Proposed zoning of R1 is compatible with the existing and planned development in this area. The project is also compatible with the proposed comp plan, with the existing comp plan and the proposed comp plan. As you're aware, we're taking that through the process. So existing comp plan shows this area, all parcels of it are as low density residential. And the new comp plan would show it as neighborhood 2, which is low to medium, as you could say. The proposed project overall, staff finds, is compatible with the existing and planned development in the area due to its relative low density. Specifically with density, they are proposing 3.68 dwelling units per acre. It's 1,039 dwellings, I guess, however you want to say that, across the 282.5 acres. Specifically next slide. On the screen, you'll see the 6 preliminary plats. The Verbena Ranch Meadows is proposed with 266 lots. Regency is proposed with 143. Heights with 53 lots. The Reserve, at the very northeast, is 137, Trails is 216, and then Verbena Ranch Place is 56 lots, but it's 224 units because each lot is a fourplex. Again, 3.68 units per acre, which is right above the low density requirement, but through the PUD, they're allowed to go over. They can technically, in current comp plan, they can go up to 6 units per acre, which they are not close to. So it's still a low density project. In addition to the slight increase in density above R1, the applicant is able to request other deviations from code or requests for deviations through the planned unit development process. One of them that they have asked is some dimensional standard changes. So in general, they're requesting a max height of 30 feet instead of 25 feet, smaller minimum lot sizes, reduced frontage requirements for those lots, and a 5-foot interior side setback instead of a 6-foot. As you can see on the table, just kind of outlines everything that they're proposing there. They are proposing to keep the 20-foot front garage setback and generally a consistent 15-foot rear setback. The minimum lot sizes, although some of them are much lower than the 8,000 square foot of R1, if you actually look at the plat, there are not many of the lots that come close to that minimum lot size. And as I outlined in the staff report, the average lot sizes are closer to the minimum of R1. So the deviation is only approximately 25 to 30% of a change. As far as access, the proposed development will have adequate site access and sewer availability. As we know, water pressure mostly is in question in this area. Staff and the applicant are continuing to work together, including this applicant and many others in the area, on resolving this issue, including potential dedication of land for well sites and multiple different developments. So engineering within their staff report did not oppose the project because of that. They anticipate that this will be taken care of by the time these sites develop and homes are starting to be occupied. Fire has also approved all of the access points as well as the phasing plan for required secondary access. Nope, sorry, skipped that one. As far as the public hearing, it was notified per code and posted per code, et cetera, so there's no issues there. We did receive a number of agency responses. Valley View School District, this is in Valley View School District, they responded. They have noted discussions with the applicant, and the applicant has agreed to a donation agreement. Granted, as we know, that cannot be part of our decision. It is outside of our jurisdiction, but did want to note that. Caldwell School District also did make notes and requested some specifics that is outside of the Caldwell School District, but again, safe routes to schools and things like that, all of those things have been also taken into consideration and, I guess to say, noted by the Caldwell School District, or by staff here. ITD did send a letter. They've noted that the Karcher Road widening project will mitigate any of the additional traffic here, so they did not require additional mitigation. Canyon Highway District had specific comments that was handled within the engineering staff report. And again, Fire has approved the phasing and the access plans. It says 2 pieces of public testimony was submitted. After I had sent this in, it was actually 3, 2 in opposition and 1 in support. The first one that was in opposition wanted a large lot development, noting the existing county lots in the area and concerns with traffic, as well as potential people cutting through their subdivision at some point, the county subdivision, I'm assuming, to the west along Karcher to avoid the intersection of 10th and Karcher. The additional public testimony opposition noted similar issues, but more specifically with traffic and just increase in home development in general and emergency service responses. There was a letter in support with a neighbor to the west and noted the support of, despite the change in the area, that they wanted to see a project like this go in with great amenities, pathways, and a developer like Brighton, whom they stated does do good development. As far as site-specific conditions, these are more shorthand notes for myself, but it keeps me on track as well as you guys. The 10th Avenue landscape street buffers within the first phase was a specific condition that staff added. Staff and the applicant have met, and there is some specific language requests to be revised around that, as noted in a memo that the applicant submitted that I hope you guys have reviewed. If not, that's okay. you can definitely read it later. It is just specific to some of the conditions on the screen here. Staff is in agreement with those requested changes, just to note on the record. Another specific condition was regarding the shared open spaces between all of the plats on the east side, noting that staff wants to make sure that through future CCNRs or people being upset with people sharing open space, that they would not be allowed to restrict the sharing of the open space between those three preliminary plats. So that'd be the fourplex of Regency Place, Trails, and the Reserve. They are required to add additional parking for the fourplexes per the PUD code. It states within multifamily developments, they have to have additional parking beyond the regular code. They have noted that they will take care of that, so applicant is in agreement with that condition. I did want to note the 10-foot pathway, which I have not previously discussed, that it runs along the east boundary of the project of the Reserve, kind of goes along the roads and then down the canal, connects to an existing pathway within the R2 development to the east, and then goes along the little sliver of Montana and then down Moss to come back to right in between elementary school and the middle school to connect to a planned and existing in some segments 10-foot multi-use pathway all the way down to the park and the lake. So it'll be a great additional connection north-south through the city and through multiple school sites, which helps with the safe routes to schools, which we all want. I did also require an additional sidewalk connection in the Meadows plat. If you look at the plat, there's the only two ways to get to the Homedale sidewalk, as currently proposed, is at both the Collector Street on the far west and then the 10th Avenue sidewalk. So requested the one connection because there's a large irrigation facility that they're rerouting to connect where they can, somewhere in the middle of that site. We also require in Public Services approval of the overall site plan for the fourplex units, as we've ran into issues with those style of developments not having enough trash enclosures and overflowing trash and things like that. So we are requesting that they provide that approval from our Public Services prior to us issuing future approvals. And then the last bullet point with the applicant requests, if you guys agree to the modifications that they have proposed with the specific site condition language, I would just ask that you guys kind of include the modified noted conditions within the staff report per the applicant's memo that was dated yesterday. And that should cover us to change those moving forward. In general, if staff does recommend, if commission recommends approval of the requested applications, that the request is subject to the conclusions as specified in the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order of decision, and include the recommended modifications as noted in this presentation. Thank you.
So we have the applicant, Jeff Bauer. Please come on out. State your name and address into the record, and you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
All right, thank you, Chairman Zamora and Commissioners. My name is Jeff Bauer. My address is 601 West Bannock in Boise. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Toll Brothers. With me from Toll is Martin Taylor, Toll's Land Development Director. We also have our civil engineer here as well if there are any questions that I can't answer. We are asking for this commission's recommendation of approval tonight for the Verbena Ranch community. Our project applications are long, but they include requests for annexation and zoning, planned unit development, and 6 preliminary plats. As Joe mentioned, we have reviewed the staff report in depth. We agree with staff's analysis of all of the applications, and we also agree with all of the staff recommended conditions of approval with those minor modifications that planning staff just covered with you. So the applicant in this case is Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers is an award-winning national home builder. They have several successful projects either concluded in Caldwell or underway. Those include Carriage Hill West, Pradera, and Pasero Ridge down near Lake Lowell. Toll is recognized nationally and has won awards nationally for quality home building and quality residential communities with fantastic amenities. Joe covered a lot of this really well, so I'll be brief as it relates to the property and the zoning, but we are on 282 acres fronting on Homedale between Montana and Bear Lane. I'll highlight that the property does have two significant irrigation facilities that meander through the property. On the north is the Deer Flat Canal, and on the south is the Forest Canal. Again, Joe covered the surrounding development well, but I do just want to highlight that immediately to our south is the Valley View Middle School and the to-be-constructed, under construction Falcon Ridge Elementary, both in the Valley View School District. The property is designated as low-density residential on the comp plan, and we are asking for R1 low-density zoning, so we are compatible with the comprehensive plan. And there are city limits on our north, east, and south boundary, as well as city limits further out to the west in the Chickasaw project. So annexation is appropriate here. This is our overall PUD. The purpose of the PUD in this instance is to increase density slightly, but more so to reduce lot sizes to allow additional open space. So typically the code requires 10% of open space. For this project, there's going to be almost 17% open space, which is in total 45 acres. Total unit count will be in the neighborhood of 1,039. And the total overall density, 3.68, average lot size, 6,600 square feet. This is a bit confusing, and I know it's a lot of information to digest quickly, but we're doing 6 preliminary plats in this instance because we have what we call 6 planning areas. Each one is kind of a distinctive feel and home type. Real quick, I'll run through them, but in the northwest corner, you have the Meadows project, which will be single-family, age-targeted homes. In the southwest corner, you have Regency, which is actually age-restricted single-family homes. In yellow, at the northwest corner of Moss and 10th, you have the Heights planning area. That's single-family product, but it's clustered. It's going to be more of like a cottage court, so 4 units around a single access shared driveway. And then moving to the east side of the project, we have 2 single-family style communities. Those are the Trails and the Reserve, and then down shown in green is the Place planning area, which is 4-plex multifamily. So one more thing to highlight is everything on the west side of 10th is either age restricted or age targeted, and everything on the east side of 10th is just market, no restrictions. Joe covered this. Each one of those planning areas will have multiple phases, like you see in a typical multi-phase preliminary plat. In terms of timing, we want to start this project as soon as possible. We are planning to construct a lot of our off-site traffic improvements immediately, so early 2025, and then actual work in tract in the phase 1 and phase 2 plats would likely start in 2025 towards the end of the year in all of the 6 planning areas. Real quick, our open space map overall, again, 45 acres, about 16% of the land area. We've done our best, and I think we've achieved this, to have a lot of open space throughout the community so that each home is near to open space. As Joe mentioned, there's a condition that requires all of the open space on the east side be usable by all of the residents in the various planning areas. Pathway and trail system, we're going to build approximately 6 miles of pathways in this community, and that's in addition to sidewalks. The one in green is the one Joe highlighted. That's the 10-foot regional pathway that provides connectivity from Homedale down to the elementary and middle school. We'll also be doing 7-foot detached pathways on 10th and Homedale. And then throughout the community, shown in purple, are the 8-foot connection pathways. Those will be off-street pathways that provide connectivity to open space, including along the Deer Flat Canal. We have 15 amenity spaces in this community, which is a ton. Again, they're spread out to serve all residents, so that all residents have open space and amenities nearby. A couple examples of amenities shown on this screen are pickleball courts, fitness centers. We'll have 4 pools in this community, community centers at those pools. And these are all photos from other toll projects in the Treasure Valley. We'll also have some more natural style amenities. We'll have 2 ponds, 1 a fishing pond. We'll have an orchard, as well as the pathways along those irrigation facilities. These are just some example elevations. Again, will look quite similar to the products that you're seeing of other toll communities, the Pradera and Passero Ridge. We'll have dozens of building elevations, so there will be many styles, many characteristics, and many home sizes in this community. Wanted to highlight these 2 specifically. That's our 4-plex elevation for the place planned area. And this elevation on the bottom of the page would be a common elevation in one of the age-targeted or age-restricted communities, smaller size, single level. We are asking for the PUD in this instance. Joe highlighted the reasons why. These are just some minor deviations, but they do allow us to build the homes slightly closer together to increase open space and create a product type that is in more demand. One of the other things we wanted to highlight that I'm not sure planning staff touched on, but all of the roads on the west side of 10th, where we have age restriction, we're proposing private gated streets. We think that this is a unique model in Caldwell. There aren't a lot of gated communities, and we've specifically chosen to do that here because of the age targeting and age restriction. We think that with all the pathways we have and the walkability, we think the private roads and gates will make this a more vibrant, walkable community for those residents. One of our last PUD requests I wanted to highlight, and planning staff has left it to this commission to make a recommendation, is whether we waive an off-lot common parking lot requirement. So in your PUD code, you say if you have lots that are less than 45 feet, you have to have 1 additional parking space for every 4 units. That makes sense if you're doing really dense development, but in this case, we're doing single family still with a garage and a driveway. We anticipate that each of these units, even at 45 feet and less, will have 5 stalls per unit. So we're asking you to waive that requirement with the PUD. Of course, we're here to answer any questions you have, myself, Martin, or our civil engineer.
Awesome, thank you. I do have some questions. I'll go ahead and take the liberty to start real quick.
Mr. Chair, sorry, this is Joe. Real quick, I apologize for interrupting. I wanted to touch on a couple of things real quick that I forgot to mention. One, apologize to Toll. I called you Brighton. So disrespectful of me. I apologize. Also, great developer for the product types that we're seeing here. And I did want to retouch on those private streets. Through the PUD, they are allowed to request those, and the applicant is proposing to construct all those private roads as the full street width of the public road street section. So there's no change there. It's just who's going to own and maintain them through this process. This exhibit also shows that the fourplexes are private. They're quote-unquote private, but it'd be like internal circulation, as you would see with any multifamily development with off-street parking in front of the units. So nothing out of the ordinary there. It's just the west side that has the private street request as part of the PUD. So I just wanted to clarify that for you guys.
Thank you.
And, sorry, 10 minutes isn't much, but I wanted to highlight, Joe reminded me of something I wanted to say. With the private streets, with the gates, that's just vehicular limitation. We aren't proposing to limit access to pedestrians and other residents of the city that, want to use our pathways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, question on your deviation. So, my understanding is that PUD can allow up to 30% of deviations, correct? From staff, that's my first
Mr. Chair, it's 30% of a site and a PUD can be non-permitted or specially permitted uses. There's not a limitation on the deviations, like dimensional standard deviations. There's not a 30% limitation, no.
Okay, so, I guess, what is the percentage of, now I lost the area that, up to 30% could use, well, yeah, so what is the percentage of the net area that may be used, you're requesting to be specifically or not permitted uses?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Chairman Zamora. The only use, so the PUD code's restriction on the 20% is for allowed uses. And so all of our uses that we're proposing that are single family are allowed. The only not specifically allowed use is the fourplex multifamily. I believe it's 20 acres total, so 20 out of 282, so I think it's, 15%, 14%, something like that.
Mr. Chair.
So let me add a follow-up, maybe you can help answer this. So then with the private lots, right, so that's not allowable unless it could be added to a special use. Or is that included in that percentage?
Mr. Chair, no.
The private lanes, excuse me.
Right, no, I understand the question. So the 30% restriction is only for the use. Private lanes or private streets would not be considered a use in that context. So it's only regarding the actual use, like what's in the land use schedule in 100202. So fourplexes are non-permitted in the R1 zone, so that's why they requested through the PUD to have that. And in that code section in PUD also states out of net area. So out of the net area, so minus the roadways is the specific language it talks about. The fourplexes are only like 8 to 10% of the total net area.
Okay. And then my last question at the moment, separately, would be, so the shared amenities are they're not for all 6 areas, so a person that lives in one area can't use amenities in all 6 areas, or it would be restricted?
Chairman Zamora, so on the west side of the project in the age targeted and age restricted, there would be no regulation. Every resident of all of those 3 planning areas could use all of the open space and all of the amenities. On the east side, the amenities would be specific to the planning area. And the reason we're doing that on the east side is because pools create issues, and we have a pool in each planning area, and we don't want people in certain planning areas migrating to the other pool. But per staff's condition, all of the open space, so the parks, the dog parks, the pathways, the pond, all of those things can be used, just not like the key carded community centers and pools.
Thank you. Other questions, commissioners?
I just got one.
Go ahead.
Turn on your mic. Commissioner Harmon?
Well, I was reading the Valley View School District's deal, and I'm 100% in agreement that they shouldn't be asking for money anyways, or anything, but it appeared, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you guys kind of stated something a while back that you would do something for them, and then it looked like there's been a big thing back and forth that nothing's happening. So I just want a little clarification on that. I'm in agreement that you don't have to do anything because it's not law, but I just want to hear why this is going back and forth.
Sure. Chairman Zamora and Councilmember Harmon, there are 2 letters in your packet. The first one is like this long back and forth, right, about we asked them to do this, they said no. And really what it comes down to is they were asking us to do actual physical improvements that weren't on our property and that we were struggling to find the tools to do. As a private landowner, we can't acquire right-of-way. We can't do a lot of off-site work. So we were just kind of, ships passing in the night, sort of kind of not connecting on something that they thought was helpful and that we could do. Through more discussions, we ended up with an in-lieu payment agreement that they were happy with and we're happy with also.
Okay, thank you. I just
Yeah.
wanted clarification. It's kind of what I got out of it, but I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boutros?
Joe, On page 257 of the PDF, and I'm sorry, each section of these big applications should be page numbered, and it wasn't. So I can only refer you to page 257 of the PDF. Verbena Ranch Place is described as having 13,095 square foot average lot size. This does not agree with the table showing each plat and the lot size comparisons to R1 requirements. The other average lot sizes shown here also don't seem to agree with the table showing lot size comparisons to R1. Can you explain that?
Jeff, can you go to that slide that has
Yeah.
the table? Are you referring to this table, Commissioner Boutros?
I believe, if, I can't quite see it from here, but it looks like you have an R1, which typically is 8,000 square feet. You're showing a whole bunch of them coming in at 4,000 square feet. That's a 50% reduction in lot size. And then you gave testimony that you're going from 10% open space to 17%. So we lose 50% on one side and we pick up 7% on the other. Is that correct?
Chairman Zamora, Commissioner Boutros, so this table would be the extremes. That would be the absolute minimum in that planning area, but it's not the average. The average is much higher, 6,600 to...
Okay, but the average cannot be bigger than the maximum R1. If you're showing in a particular plat 8,000 square feet, your average should not be larger than that. It can't be.
So,
I think there's an
Commissioner
error. And Joe, maybe you could revisit that. If there's an error in how the paragraph that shows the average lot sizes does not compare with the table that's shown here.
Right, Commissioner Boutros, they're saying two different things, that's why they're not the same. So these would be the requests that the applicant is having for the minimum lot size allowed within that planning area. Same as our current R1, the minimum is 8,000. Somebody can still build on a 13,000 square foot lot or have an average lot size of 13,000 if they want. That's just a minimum benchmark that they have to meet, which is why the applicant is stating these numbers shown in the minimum for the interior and corner are the extreme. That would be the absolute minimum, which I had mentioned in my testimony, as you noted, yes, that they're not really approaching that minimum, and I couldn't actually find a lot size that got to the minimum. They were always at least a couple thousand or around a couple thousand higher than what they're showing here. So that's why the average is larger than that minimum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So we do have several individuals that signed up for public testimony. No one else in favor. We do have in neutral, Butch and Julie Jeffrey, who signed up to speak. So if one of both of you would like to come up, you have 3 minutes. So
I have
please.
copies of what I'm going to read, if you
Sure.
want copies.
Mike, go ahead and you can start by stating your name and, oh, did you need one? Oh, okay. So name and address. and-
Butch and Julie Jeffrey, 15179 David Street, Caldwell. Good evening, Commissioners. We have two topics we'd like to speak in regards to Verbena Master Plan Development, the water and traffic. Those are pretty common, I think, in all developments. It's our understanding an agreement has been made between the City of Caldwell and the developers of Verbena Ranch and Element Ridge to place a water holding tank to support Zone 2 and possibly a well to support Zone 4 at the corner of David Street and Airport and soon to be Bear Lane. We ask you to reconsider this placement. What you are asking of those nearest of this project could have the potential to adversely affect the property values and the resale of these homes on David Street. These homes have held significant value in the county in their longstanding and care. These homeowners deserve better. We have stood next to the water tank off Moss and have included with our comments this evening an aerial view of that tank, noting every home around Moss Street tank is rear or side facing the tank, unlike homes on David Street would be. You are expecting these homeowners to face this enormous water tower out of their front door, whereas the new development homes look to be rear or side-facing to this water project. We implore you to go to the site and ask yourselves, if this was your home, would you still build this tank if it was your home? Further, on page 245 of tonight's agenda packet, it is noted by the city engineers, water issues. The comment states, quote, anticipate solutions congruent with development timelines, end quote. Can you explain to us what this means? Also on page 259, under staff comments, quote, staff report has taken into account the noted water issues as engineering and public works are actively working with multiple applicants in this area to address the water availability issues, end quote. Working with applicants, why are homeowners not included? And there's also statements in there that mention an inadequate water pressure, which is being evaluated. Regarding traffic, excuse me, the studies we have reviewed for the new development show David Street may fail when all future projects are built, including projects on 10th and Highway 55. Is this true? And if true, we ask for a closer look at David Street to help any future deficiencies that may arise supporting this new growth and what is needed to support the potential new growth. In closing, we have read your comprehensive plan goals and policies and ask that those same goals and policies be applied to current homeowners, not just future residents. Thank you, Chairperson and Commissioners.
Thank you very much. All right. So that was the only, those were the only individuals signed up in neutral position, so there were several signed up in opposition. Michelle Bratton, do you wish to speak? You didn't mark whether you did or not. I don't see, okay, but signed up in opposition. Gordon, did, would you like to speak? All right. Terriel, got it. So you have, please read your name and address into the record, or begin with your name and address in the record, and you have up to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Gordon Terriol, T-A-I-A-R-I-O-L, 16226 Horizon Drive in Caldwell. I hear my big beef about this whole thing is the safety of the whole Caldwell area. I've done some research, statistics straight out of Caldwell Fire Department. This information is taken from them. I couldn't find anything from the police department. They're not quite as transparent. But in the first 3 quarters of this year, calls for service from Caldwell Fire for the first quarter was 1,714. There were 18 calls that they were not able to service because there were no units available. Okay, there's no information as to turnout time or travel times. In the second quarter, the calls for service was 1,904. That's an 11% increase in 3 months. Okay, there were no available information on level 0 calls for service with no available units. Turnout time on the average is 1.24 minutes. Average response time, 5.43 minutes. The national average is 4 minutes flat. So we're a little bit over. Third quarter comes in at 2,031 calls for service, which is another 6.6% increase over the second quarter. So basically we're at 18% of an increase. Level 0 calls for service where no units were available, there were 36 of them. Turnout time on the average is 2.5 minutes. Travel time has gone up to 6 minutes and 3 seconds. It's an increase of 18.47, almost 18.5% calls for service in 6 months. The increase of 11% in response time in 3 months. Everybody knows a medical or a fire emergency, time is of the essence. Every second counts. People be croaking because y'all want to get rich off the property taxes. I believe a large part, my wife is back there. I believe a large part of the increase in response time can be attributed to the local traffic. Traffic's gotten worse in town. Fire trucks can't get anywhere. Nobody can get anywhere. And the expansion of the city limits, you keep moving stuff further and further out, it's going to extend the times more and more. Okay?
Traffic's only going to get worse with the increase of housing and population. Question for everybody in the room, who's in favor of having a longer response time to pick them up if they're down with a heart attack or something like that, or their house is on fire? I don't think anybody. Another question, is there a plan in place from the city to lower the response times for the firefighters, paramedics, or law enforcement? Is the plan based on facts, like, oh, hey, we're gonna build another firehouse or something? And is that fact cash in hand, or is just, well, we figure if we get this tax money, we can build another firehouse? That's like me going on Saturday to Stinker and buying a lottery ticket and planning already I'm gonna win it. Doesn't work that way. You people really need to think this thing through, because right now, it's not right. That's all I've got.
Thank you. All right, we also have Carol Anna signed up to speak. Carl, I'm sorry.
A little hobbly, I just had knee replacement surgery, so.
Name and address and 3 minutes. Up to
Carl Anna, live at 105 West Homedale Road in Caldwell. I'm on the very north side. If you look at the, kind of the left side of the project, I live just right above that, a little triangle property there. I have the same concerns, and I wonder if the city has, are they gonna expand 10th Avenue, or are they gonna expand Homedale Road to, because if you've been to Homedale and 10th, before or after school hours, it's gonna take you 10, 15 minutes to get through there. I don't know if they're planning a traffic circle or what, but that's just a absolute nightmare. We get around it now by going down to Bear and going around, but that's one of my concerns. And also the water issue is huge. I talked to Ms. Hart before the meeting, and she explained what the city does as far as their hydrologist and digging deeper wells. But the aquifer runs right there for my property, and I'm very concerned, as are other residents, about having enough water for this project. And as far as, I guess I'm just completely ignorant of what low-density residential is. That doesn't look like low density at all. That looks like, pack them in as like sardines, as many houses as you can, cut the square footage down of each piece of property, and just, you know, I know a company's supposed to make money, but packing that many people in there, like the other gentleman said, is gonna increase fire responses, police responses, and it's just, so I'm not opposed to the whole project. I'm just really opposed to them, how they're cramming everything in there. I know they're trying to tell you that, oh, well, we're gonna make more open space by making houses smaller, but why don't they just build a few less houses on the property, give you the same amount of open space, and, you know, keep the project, because they have the right to build it. I mean, I can't argue against that, although I would love to keep the alfalfa fields there, but, so that's my opposition points to the project. I think just, instead of cramming them in like sardines, to me, that's pretty high-density residential. Build a few less homes, keep the same amount of open space for the people in there, and, you know, that's my opposition.
Thank you. We also have, looks like Bridge Fly, who chose not to speak. Ron Dillon didn't select. Just Ron, would you like to speak? All right. Please state your name and address into the record, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Ron Dillon, 15181 Daniel Street, Caldwell, Idaho. Idaho native, Valley View High School. Now I'm starting my 3-minute clock. I'll start off by quoting my friend Dave Ingram, who's the county assessor in nearby Malheur County. And I quote, Ron, what they're doing in Canyon County is utter madness. They're gonna run out of water. It's a catastrophe. And I'm not quoting some crackpot. I'm telling you a conversation I had over a sandwich with a neighboring county assessor. Guy that's pretty smart, I think. In all the talk tonight, I haven't heard anybody bring up the Canyon County Comprehensive Plan 2030. Where's that in all this discussion? Have Toll Brothers read that? Have you guys read that? If you have, you'd know that it says things like preserve Idaho agricultural heritage, preserve Idaho history, planned growth, slow growth. I'm a native Idahoan, but I just came back from Oregon. We bought an 80-acre ranch over there in 2017. We bought a nice, cute little 80-acre ranch for $350,000 with a house on it and a whole bunch of water. We did that because Oregon was smart enough to enact what you may have heard of, the 1973 Farm Protect Act. And you cannot build a house, more than one house on 80 acres if it's zoned ag. That's why next time you get a chance, drive over to Vail, Ontario, Nissa, Adrian, and you'll see that they're growing real slow. You won't see Toll Brothers running over there because they can't chop up all the farm ground. This is madness, absolute madness. The traffic, it's crazy. If I was in charge of anything, I'd say, Toll Brothers, I'll tell you what, you can build 4 houses on that 282 acres. Knock yourselves out. Everybody can have 80 acres. There you go. Now, here's the real irony, and I've got 45 seconds. I work with cities. I'm working right now with Milwaukee, Oregon. They can't grow. They're in big trouble. They border Portland, Oregon. I'm working with them on building 6,000 ADUs, additional dwelling units. They're going high density, affordable. We're working with 3D printed houses instead of the stuff they build. We're looking at modular homes. We're doing some futuristic stuff. Someday your grandkids will probably live in a 3D printed house that can withstand a hurricane and a tornado and a big fire. There's so much going on here that I got 5 seconds. I would beg you to take a knee, slow down, hit the pause button. Please don't do this.
All right, I'm gonna ask the audience, we have to keep appropriate decorum, so no applause, and we're trying to engage in this public session to make sure we hear everyone. So the next person, Patricia Aston, would you like to speak?
Actually, can I give my 3 minutes for him to continue? Seriously?
Just getting started, maybe.
That's what I mean. Seriously, can I give my 3 minutes?
No, each person gets their 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Patricia Aston. I live at 14102 Shenandoah Court. I don't get what this city is doing. The residents of this city want it to be a small community, obviously, and it's just growing and growing and growing. The fire department can't keep up, the police can't keep up, the infrastructure, the schools. You know, I heard like last year, some schools were having to turn away children, and yet we keep letting more and more development in. And this is 1,000 units. That's how many people, you know, moving into this. It's just insane what's going on here. It's insane. We don't want to be Meridian. We don't want to be Boise. We want to be Caldwell. We don't have to be rich. We want to be a small community that cares about each other, not an uppity, high-class, 4 swimming pool residential area. That's what I believe that most people here want, and it seems like the city and the people that are in charge don't really care what we want, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I have H.E. Beth Carrico. Name and address and 3 minutes.
My name is Beth Carrico, and I live at 16227 South Kimball Avenue, Caldwell, right across from in the development across from Valley View Middle School. Just a really quick comment. You just made a comment about not clapping. We didn't do it after every speaker. You need to hear from the community. The clapping was from the community. And that's one of the concerns that we have, is that you're not listening. Planning and zoning, city, you're not listening to the community. And that's what we're here for. And so I think the clapping was very appropriate. I was a city resident for 18 years before moving just outside the city in the neighborhood across from the Valley View Middle School 6 years ago. The final decision in buying our home a result of the views that we have, Squaw Butte and the Boise foothills in the distance. Indeed, across from a school and district named Valley View. I am here to address, along with others, the concerns we have for not a planned development per se, but regarding the ramifications of this development and the impact it will have on the surrounding area, which includes but is not limited to major traffic and water concerns. In regards to the traffic issue with 1,075 homes going in, and it said 1,030 some, or over 1,000 at Verbena, and an average of at least 2 cars per home, and definitely more. In addition to other subdivisions springing up within a 2 to 3 mile radius, it is inconceivable how that many cars will clog up and cause traffic backup on South 10th. As you are aware, there are currently the following subdivisions or apartment rentals directly impacting or are in the plans to impact South 10th traffic, with its 2 lanes, no shoulder, and a short turn lane onto Highway 55. There is Soterra, there is Pradera, then there's Procera Ridge, now Verbena Ranch, and then across from my home, there's Element Ridge planned at David Street and 10th, bordering the southeast boundary of Verbena, where a huge water tank and large well house will be going in, blocking the views of this well-established neighborhood, but blocking the views of the homes in our subdivision that have been there since the 1960s. These developments, in addition to others already planned, south, southeast, and southwest of Caldwell that will impact South 10th with its middle school, new elementary school, a neighborhood grocery store, and 2 pharmacies, all on South 10th. So that's bringing in people from all around the South 10th area, from off of 55, Homedale, all that area. This in addition to 2 newer townhouse developments with close to 100 dwellings just north of Ustick and 10th on both sides of this already very busy avenue that is desperately in need of turn lanes. Backups at the 10th and Ustick stoplight already exceed 25 to 30 cars. I could only hope that with the development of Verbena, which in all likelihood will be approved for annexation, in keeping with the trend, that it will be a drawn-out development phase, more so than currently happening with subdivisions, with establishments of strict and better foresight to infrastructure requirements, incorporating better and more thoughtful traffic management plans, engaging with the community prior to and throughout the process, and utilizing tools like density zoning and conditional use permits to control the pace and scale of construction.
To let you finish your statement and then.
Okay. In other words, adhering more to the comprehensive plan and not continually changing it. Agriculture, once the basis and crux of our Canyon County is being consumed at an alarming rate. Please show us you are aware and care and help preserve our heritage by actually saying no occasionally to big land developers, too many which are from out of state. Thank you.
And then signed up in opposition and signed up to speak is Brad Carrico. It was read into the record, so you're good. Name, address, and 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Brad Carrico, 16227 South Kimball Avenue, Caldwell. I wish to speak tonight in opposition to the Verbena Ranch development. While I understand that development is part of our region right now, I believe the development that has occurred in the city has been kind of a breakneck pace, and there hasn't been enough careful consideration of what's been taking place. A bit about my background. I'm a retired battalion chief from the Caldwell Fire Department, where I served for 26 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of highs and lows within the city for the staff and the city itself. And my concerns tonight deal largely with the staffing and infrastructure questions. My first thought tonight is on staffing. Again, as a battalion chief, my one primary responsibilities was scheduling staff. Right now, there are days when units are taken out of service because they can't get adequate staff to meet minimum staffing recommendations. There was a time when I was still riding the engine, there was policemen, we had a call. 7 cops were supposed to be on duty that night. They were at their minimum staffing of 3 because they couldn't get anybody to come in or to cover shifts. Imagine only 3 officers in a city of 70,000 people. That's not, to me, that is not adequate enough. Now, if we look at staffing in the other departments, the only thing you need to do is drive by the parking lot in the morning and see all the city building services pickups parked in the old gas station parking lot across from the old city, or from the US Bank. The staff, and I get it, we need to have the staffing to take care of the things that we're approached with. But yet at what cost do we have to pay for all this? My reason for bringing this up is, how many of you guys were in this city in 2008 when the housing market tax revenues tanked? I lived through it in the fire department. The city negotiated to buy out 5 senior firefighters, and the city had to get a Fires Act grant for 2 years to keep 6 people on duty to where we could maintain adequate staffing to meet minimum standards for the national standard. So it's not a lot of fun. So my question is, what happens now? Things are great. We have a lot of tax money in the coffers. It's great, but what happens if this tanks again? As been mentioned tonight, water supply is a question. Do they have enough water to meet the ISO ratings? And for those of you who don't understand, ISO governs what your insurance rate that your citizens pay for fire insurance. The less water supply you can provide, the higher the ISO rating is going to be, and the more your citizens are going to pay for water, or for their insurance, fire insurance. The number of wells, how many are going to be drilled, what depth, what quality, and how are they going to impact neighboring wells? Do these new wells have senior water right, or are they junior water right to existing residential wells that are in these areas? And who is paying for the cost of all these wells? Is it the developer, or is it the citizens of Caldwell through their water fees?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's testimony. That was everybody that signed up, all in favor, neutral, and opposition. So at this time, I would ask the applicant to come up. Yes. So maybe before this, I think staff would like to take a couple minutes and add some additional clarity.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologize, Jeff. There's just a couple things I wanted to touch on that were brought up that are by the residents there, but more of a city response than the applicant. One, regarding the Canyon County Comp Plan, because they're requesting annexation into the city of Caldwell, the Canyon County Comp Plan is irrelevant for our review. It's just not a document that we review when we look at applications.
Folks, please.
Well played, sir.
Please continue.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate that the Element Ridge subdivision that has been noted, it is directly adjacent, but that's not on the docket tonight. So I just wanted to remind Commission that any decisions made tonight would not be reflective of that subdivision. And then the density discussions that were talked about, throughout planning throughout the country, low density is considered up to about 3 units per acre, give or take. Medium density would be approximately 3 to 8, and then medium high is 8 to 12, and then usually over 12 to 15 units per acre is considered high density. So in the context of my education as well as our experience in planning, this is nowhere near high density. So it's a discussion point of whether we can afford, both literally in land and or money, to keep developing in, acre lots and things like that, that type of a thing. But that's a bigger philosophical question. But in general, this is considered a low density development.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer, your rebuttal, please.
Thank you, Chair Zamora and Commissioners. I'll be brief, but I did just want to touch on a few of the comments with respect to water, traffic, schools, et cetera. So we did prepare a traffic impact study. Our traffic engineer was Kittleson and Associates. They're here tonight on a different project, part of your comp plan review, I believe, but they have prepared what is the required mitigation for this project to ensure that the roads and intersections we're impacting, that we're improving. So we have a ton of frontage in this project. We'll be building miles of collector roadways and arterials. All of the frontage on Homedale will be improved and right-of-way dedicated. The whole section of Bear Lane, which isn't even a road today, will be dedicated and improved. That whole stretch of Moss will be dedicated, improved, creating additional access to the schools. And then 10th, running through the site, will also be widened and improved. In total, we'll be dedicating almost 40 acres of this 282-acre site to right-of-way to widen roads and create pathways.
Folks, you can have conversation afterwards.
Yep, 10th was on the list. We're dedicating 70 feet from total width. It'll be 2 lanes in both directions with a center turn lane, and the accesses that serve our property will have decel lanes and left turn lanes. We'll also be making improvements, right lane turns, intersection improvements to all these corners. I could go through it, but it would take a long time. With respect to water, the staff report and the city engineer does know there are pressure issues out here. I'm not an expert on that. I think it has a lot to do with the topography of the site. We are on a hill. There, as far as I'm aware, have been no discussions or concerns about lack of water, but a lack of pressure. We're trying to cooperate with the city, public works and engineers. We've offered a well site to dedicate, free of charge, donate to the city if they decide that a well is proper on our site. It's going through testing right now. I would let the city engineer speak to that if she'd like when I'm through. We certainly are not in charge of how the city chooses to provide water. We would be a normal customer. If you want to build a tank, great. If you want to drill more wells, great. We want to support you however you choose to do that. On the fire concerns, there is a very long detailed letter, comment letter from the fire department on this application. They provided specific conditions they want us to meet, but in the end, they unequivocally stated that they can support approval of this project if we meet those conditions. We will pay fire impact fees, which is just under $800 per unit. So in total, this project would be just shy of $800,000 in impact fees to the fire department. Mr. Dodson touched on a point I wanted to make. The City of Caldwell's comprehensive plan does govern this application since we are seeking annexation. And as detailed in staff report and the comments tonight, we are perfectly in line with the comprehensive plan. We're asking for low density zoning. We're building all of the infrastructure that your comp plan asks for, including regional pathways. With respect to schools, we think this is a great development because of its adjacency to the school and new elementary school. I think everyone agrees smart growth is putting density next to schools for safe routes to schools and limiting traffic. That's a great feature of this project. We're also increasing the safety for residents north of Homedale by having those safe pedestrian corridors. Valley View did pass a levy last year, one of the only successful levies in the state, so they do have $78 million to upgrade facilities, which is great, in addition to our donation. I believe those are all our comments. Again, if there are specific questions about any aspects of the application, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. All right, so that closes our public testimony, and so at this time, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Commissioner Boutros made the motion.
Second.
Second for Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now it's a chance for us to deliberate, and certainly still an opportunity for us to ask questions of staff for additional clarity on our, for us. So with that, Commissioner Boutros.
We've talked a little bit about Valley View School District and the recent bond that they passed. And it is fortunate for this developer that they're able to take advantage of that taxpayer money in order to get their development in. You should be mindful of that. Okay, I'm going to press on. There are no nearby services except the Walmart neighborhood market, a gas station, a credit union, and some small businesses, including a pharmacy. 10th Avenue is a major road for accessing Highway 55 from Caldwell. Except for the signal at 10th and Homedale and for direct access to this development, there are no capacity improvements indicated for 10th Avenue. I read the traffic impact study carefully, and I was surprised that there is no expectation of traffic going north or south on 10th Avenue. They only talk about eastbound traffic. Okay. The applicant has made significant lot size and setback reductions in the name of providing housing variety. In no instance did the applicant retain an R1 required lot size anywhere in this development. Joe, that may not be an accurate statement based on what you told me, so thank you for that. But they did ask for a height increase from 25 to 30 feet throughout. The PUD additional parking requirement is for 43 spaces, and the applicant proposes 0. For the 4-family dwellings, the guest parking requirement is 28 spaces, and the applicant proposes 2 spaces. Quote, in the submitted narrative, the applicant has noted that each dwelling in each preliminary plat, excluding the fourplex development, will be constructed with at least a 2-car garage and a 2-car driveway, providing 4 spaces for each dwelling, twice the minimum required for single-family homes per Caldwell City Code, close quote. The applicant is taking credit for interior space in a lot, which is often reallocated by the owner to uses other than parking. You should not be taking credit for the garage on the lot, because that means the owner can't use it for their own desired purposes. They have to use it for parking because you haven't given them other parking. From the staff, quote, Commission and City Council should determine if the combination of available on-street parking and the proposed minimum of 4 off-street spaces per lot, which I don't think is accurate, is a sufficient alternative to the PUD requirement. Quote, staff does have concern with off-street parking regarding the proposed 4-pack style of single-family homes proposed within the Heights subdivision. I'm almost done. The traffic impact study indicates that there will be 6,917 daily trips, and all that is required for traffic mitigation is a signal at 10th and Homedale and some turn lanes for direct access to the development. The development benefits from other traffic improvements in the area made at taxpayer expense, notably at Montana and Eustic, which was just completed recently, to my great relief, Rob. Caldwell City Code does not currently allow for private streets, but through the PUD process, the applicant may make this request. So we heard tonight that there are not many gated streets in Caldwell. I'm here to tell you there are none. It is prohibited. So we received an inaccurate statement. Gated streets are not used in Caldwell, and this development would create a precedent for doing so. This is inconsistent with the rest of Caldwell. Mr. Chairman, I oppose this development.
Thank you, Commissioner Boutros. I want to add to that because there's part of that I want to piggyback on. I guess for me, one of the biggest things that I'm grappling with and leaning towards being in opposition to this is that the PUD, which allows for a variety of deviations, is for the entire property. Though then when we have that entire property, then each item, each plat and phase offers unique things, and they're limited. So like I asked initially, if you live in a certain area, you can access all of it. If you live in another area, you can only access some of it. But the reality is the PUD is offering exceptions for the entire development. And so if that's which includes, smaller lot sizes and throughout the whole thing. So for me, I would rather have seen separate, proposals come before us that met those respective standards, as opposed to leveraging the PUD for the entire property, but really only allowing the amenities to serve certain portions of that. So I struggle with that, and there's some certain sentiments that you share, Commissioner Boutros, that I agree with as well. Other comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, just as a point of clarification, the individual preliminary plats do stand alone in the PUD requirements. Just wanted to make sure that is, and that's in the amenities as well as the required open space. They're required a certain number of amenities and a minimum 10% open space, and they do each stand alone, although I understand your point regarding the sharing of them, which staff, I also noted in my staff report, but at the request of staff, they did propose each preliminary plat to stand on its own as if they were gonna come in separately.
Sure. And I guess to add to that point, some of the amenities were, and they seem pretty, I don't know if I would have considered them amenities. I think they were like, I mean, walking paths and stuff like that, which are part of our walking path plan that we have, the master plan that's in there. So, but nonetheless, that's kind of still where I stand with that.
Can staff, answer to Commissioner Boutros about the gated community thing? I'd like to know a little bit, I'd like to have a little
Sure.
clarification on that.
Chairman Harmon, that is correct. Gates are prohibited, or I should say not allowed. It's not anywhere in code. It's not really prohibited because it's just not mentioned at all, but it's not allowed either. So that is true. However, our city council has requested that staff write a private street and gated community code section in anticipation of some of these types of developments. And this is common in pretty much every city everywhere. It's just a thing that happens. People want their private community, they want a little more privacy in general, and they pay with their HOA fees to maintain those internal roadways. So it's not something that's unheard of, and it's something that has been on staff's radar per council's request for a while now. This application just happens to, through the PUD requirement or allowances, ask for it now.
So just a quick follow-up. So are there any currently right now that have been approved through PUD?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Especially not gates. Private streets, yes, there are at least pieces of some. Even the aviary subdivision that I brought before you earlier this year included some private street components as well. So that is mixed in, but the gates, no.
Thank you. Other questions from, or commentary for discussion from commissioners? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'd be happy to do that.
Commissioner Boutros.
Based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter, and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for annexation of 8 parcels with a zoning designation of R1 low-density residential and preliminary plats SUB 24-22 through SUB 24-27 for the Verbena Ranch planned unit development is recommended for denial because of extensive PUD incompatibility with the surrounding area.
There was a motion for Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Whitbeck. Again, a affirmative vote here would be to deny this. Roll call, please.
Boutros.
Yes.
Whitbeck.
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes.
Harmon.
Yes.
All right. Folks, still, thank you. With that, close this public hearing. Motion was denied, and we move on with our agenda. Pull that up. So that moves us to, all right, folks, we still have business, so that moves us to action item, public hearing, this legislative, CPM 24-6, ZOA 24-2. Staff report, please. What?
Give it a second.
Yeah.
Morgan Besaw, Planning and Zoning. Thank you. The application in front of you is a comp plan amendment as well as a zoning ordinance amendment. It is a city-initiated application, so the city is the applicant, and it is for the adoption of a new capital improvement plan and traffic impact fee program. The adoption of this program will allow the city of Caldwell to collect development impact fees and to fund impact fee eligible roadway projects. The engineering department, as well as our consultant who is here tonight, will present on the capital improvement plan and traffic impact fees. The second part of the application is for an ordinance amendment to the Chapter 10, Article 3, Chapter 10, Article 2, and Chapter 10, Article 9 of Caldwell City Code. And the majority of that zoning ordinance amendment is to create new text to allow this new traffic impact fee program. And there are a few minor other amendments that I will walk through at the end, but I will hand it over to engineering to present on the traffic impact fees.
Thank you.
Commissioner, Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm here to talk a little bit about our traffic impact fees and the process that we're in now. The city of Caldwell has, as you know, each development that develops.
Can you hold on a second? Can we get the door shut or something? I can't.
I don't think we're allowed to shut it because it's a public meeting.
Well, can we
think-
get them to leave the lobby so we can actually hear what's going on in here?
Just close it a bit.
Can't shut it. Sorry, Rob.
She's working on, but go ahead, Rob.
Maybe you can't shut it. I had always heard that you can't.
No,
'cause
it's
a
fine.
public
I just
meeting.
couldn't hear you, sorry.
I'm here to talk a little bit about the traffic impact fees. The city has, for many years, implemented what we call traffic mitigation, which means every development that comes in addition to their frontage improvements and what's required in the traffic impact study, they have other obligations to the city. And it was always traffic mitigation where the city would dictate or identify other areas outside of their project that needed to be improved, that their traffic was going to have an impact on. This is a very outdated process and difficult and time-consuming for staff. Every other city in the valley has a traffic impact fee. And so we have been working for several years now to get a transportation master plan completed. And many of you know that that was adopted last year, I believe, or it was early this year. And that shows the transportation plan throughout the city. And then in addition to that, we have worked very closely with our consultant, Kittleson and Associates, who are here tonight and will be presenting on a capital improvement plan, which identifies the major intersections and corridors that really are going to need attention as growth comes. It is very important for people to note that roads don't build themselves. We can't build a road first and then let development come in because everything's all built out. The city can't afford that, and the city doesn't want taxpayers to pay for that. So what we do is we have an impact fee that is levied on development, so when development comes in, they are building their portion of the system. I think it's just helpful to note that, and I apologize, I'm going off topic a little bit. When people complain about capacity, it's the development that produces capacity for the city. It's not the city going in and building the capacity. So so the development, we want all of the new growth to be on the backs of the development, and that's why we are planning to adopt transportation impact fees. That's why we have fire impact fees, park impact fees, and police impact fees, is because the development helps pay for those departments for everything to operate correctly. The transportation impact fees are consistent with what all the other municipalities do around this valley. And we've worked very closely with our consultant to review other plans, compare other plans to the city's plan that we're implementing, and it's very consistent with what goes on in the valley, and developers are very familiar with it. So at this time, I just wanted to let you know that the city of Caldwell will be, upon adoption at City Council, assuming that this gets adopted, the traffic mitigation program that the city has had for decades will be basically completed or closed out, and then we will be moving to a traffic impact fee. Our consultant is here. I will turn the time over to Mark and Liz, and they will do the presentation on how we've gotten to this point, and the step would be that the commission here would make a recommendation, and then it goes to City Council ultimately for review and then adoption.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I think I'll start by introducing myself. So my name is Mark Heisinger, and I work for Kittleson Associates. I'm a civil engineer and also do a lot of planning work throughout the valley. So pleasure to be here today, and hope to introduce this program and answer some questions and provide some insight into what we've been working on over the past couple of years with the city. So the purpose of really of just this agenda item and why we're here giving this presentation is, number one, to provide an overview of the Caldwell Area Capital Improvements Plan and Traffic Impact Fee Program. So talk through the timeline and some of the key assumptions that went into that program. And then finally, we'll have a request to P&Z. And I apologize, what I have on the slide doesn't exactly match what was in the agenda, but and I'll refer to staff at the end to get that right, but it's essentially to adopt this and amend the comprehensive plan to reflect this. So before we kick things off, there's a lot of acronyms floating around, so I thought I'd start by just making sure those are clear, and I'll try to reiterate them as we move on. So CATS refers to Caldwell Area Transportation System. That was the acronym we used for the Master Transportation Plan, the CATS plan, so you'll be seeing a lot of that. CIP stands for Capital Improvements Plan, and then TIF stands for Traffic Impact Fee. So before we jump into covering the actual CIP and TIF program, I wanted to provide some background on the Caldwell Area Transportation System Plan document. A lot of the information in the CIP and TIF program is based on the foundation that was set in the CATS plan, and the development of this plan started in 2021, and a lot of work has gone into it since then, so I wanted to talk about some of those activities. So at a high level, the CATS plan is a long-range transportation plan that evaluated the city's multimodal transportation system today and 20 plus years in the future. So we used a horizon year of year 2050 in that plan. It started with an existing conditions analysis. So what is the transportation system like today? What are the challenges, needs, and opportunities in the system? And that included an evaluation not just of roadway and intersection capacity, but also elements like safety, freight, and bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. That also included analysis of these components under year 2050 conditions. And so that's really trying to answer the question, how will the transportation system perform with anticipated growth? And what will travel demand look like in year 2050? And what projects will be needed to address that demand? The results from both of these analyses resulted in a comprehensive project list. So that included things like intersection improvements, roadway widenings, and bicycle pedestrian facilities, and also projects dedicated to safety improvements. And in that project list, we also included estimated costs for each project and considerations for prioritization and funding. As part of that process, we had 2 rounds of public outreach and also worked closely with Highway District 4. You'll notice that the boundary overlaps with them, in addition to City of Nampa and other partner agencies. So as I said, that process mainly took place from year 2021 out to 2023, and then that plan was adopted by the City of Caldwell Council in February 2024, so earlier this year. Since then, we've been working to create the Caldwell Area CIP and TIF program, and that's what we're here today to focus on. At a very high level, and we'll be getting into this as I move forward here, but the CIP and Impact Fee program are based on the roadway and intersection capacity projects that were first identified within the CATS plan, but then adjusted based on Idaho code requirements for impact fees. We'll cover these over the next couple slides, as I said, but these adjustments include changes to the horizon year from 2050 to 2041, evaluation of impact fee eligibility requirements, and engagement with the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee. Pending action taken today by this group, our plan is to go to City Council in January for adoption. So the study area for the CATS plan and the Capital Improvements Plan is shown on this screen. The boundaries include the City of Caldwell city limits, the city's area of impact, and Highway District 4's jurisdictional boundary minus the portion of their jurisdiction north of the Boise River. And then, so that basically extends to Ada County, Canada to the east, State Highway 50, kind of where it takes that 90-degree jog south to the west, and then Ustick Road and Marcin Road to the south. These expanded boundaries allow for consistency with Highway District 4's fee structure. They also plan to adopt this document in conjunction with Canyon County. It captures the city's area of impact and allows flexibility and captures growth as it occurs. I do want to emphasize that impact fees collected by the city will still be spent on projects in the city regardless of this expanded service area boundary. This boundary is just was used in the calculation of the impact fees. And I'll kind of walk through, that will be relatively proportional as you change the size of the service area. So Idaho Development Impact Fee Act presents requirements for the development of CIP and impact fee programs within the state of Idaho. We recognize that the methodology that was used to create the CIP and traffic impact fee program may seem complicated, and much of that is to meet the requirements in the Idaho Code. This is not a comprehensive list of what you see on the screen here, but these are some of the key assumptions that drove the development of the CIP and the impact fee program. So I'll just walk through these one by one and try to hit them. So the first act requirement we wanted to touch on is that impact fees can only fund projects in the CIP. So that is why we have not just an impact fee program in front of you, but also a CIP in conjunction. And then to meet that 20-year timeframe requirement, the horizon year is 2041, and that's because our existing conditions analysis was based on year 2021, so it hits that 20-year horizon from what we looked at in existing conditions. The second item I wanted to highlight is that projects must address deficiencies triggered by future development, so not existing deficiencies. So to meet that requirement, our project identification included an analysis of existing deficiencies and future deficiencies, and we used both of those to identify impact fee eligible projects. And only in the CIP and TIF program, only those future deficiencies, or rather projects that address future deficiencies, are impact fee eligible. The third item I wanted to highlight is that projects must address system level improvements as opposed to project level. And so to address that, impact fee eligible projects are on arterial roadways only. So really projects that address regional as opposed to local traffic. Fourth, deficiencies must be measured by a predefined performance measure. So we use a performance measure of level of service in our analysis and identification of projects. Some of you might be familiar with that, but it just represents the level of vehicle delay experienced at roadways and intersections, and that's similar to how the city of Caldwell looks at traffic analysis and traffic impact studies. And then finally, the fifth item we wanted to highlight is that the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee shall serve in an advisory capacity in development of the CIP and impact fee program. And we held 2 meetings with the City of Caldwell's committee in 2024. So next, I wanted to highlight the projects in the CIP. So those are highlighted on this map, and there are 54 total. These include traffic signals, roundabouts, and roadway widenings, and these are all projects that improve roadway capacity. The total cost of all of these projects is just under $340 million, and about 63% of these costs are impact fee eligible and can be funded via traffic impact fees. And I'll go ahead and explain kind of that discrepancy here. So the percent of each project cost that is impact fee eligible will vary project to project. So some projects will be 0% impact fee eligible, some will be closer to 70, 80% impact fee eligible. And I'll walk through kind of some of those key components. So those ones that are 0% impact fee eligible, those are projects that address existing deficiencies. So intersections or roadways that operate below that performance measure today cannot collect and spend impact fees for projects that address those deficiencies. The CIP also assumes that the components of project costs to build bicycle and pedestrian facilities and reconstruction of existing travel lanes are not impact fee eligible, and that ranges from about 10 to 30% of each project cost. And that's really to keep the focus of these impact fees at addressing future deficiencies in vehicular capacity. And then finally, one of the other key factors that drives this discrepancy is that projects that border other jurisdictions, so for example, Nampa or Ada County, only 50% of those project costs can be assumed for impact fee eligibility. So I want to shift gears here and discuss how traffic impact fees are calculated and how they relate back to the CIP project list. We thought a good way to introduce this was to describe and reinforce the purpose of traffic impact fees, which in short is to fund system capacity improvements that are needed due to future development. So impact fees go to projects that maintain, not improve, existing levels of service. They are calculated directly based on the cost of projects in the CIP, and they are based on the impact a development's land use is anticipated to have on a transportation system. As I'm sure you all are aware, that can vary greatly based on the specific characteristics of a development and the different types of land use. So I wanted to introduce that before I move to how we calculate impact fees, because really that calculation is trying to capture that last bullet that you see on the slide here. So the traffic impact fee schedule has unique fees for over 40 different land uses, and the calculation is shown on the screen, and that same calculation is used to calculate each of those 40 land uses. We thought it would be useful just to run through a couple examples. Our intent here isn't to dig into the weeds of every single land use, but rather give an indication for how some of these different factors can change the resulting impact fee for the different land uses in the schedule. So we'll walk through these factors one by one. And yeah, so basically on the left, you'll see the factors that go into the impact fee. Those are multiplied together to equal the resulting impact fee. And actually, I got a little ahead of myself there. Before I go into that, I did want to quickly highlight why we chose this methodology. Number one is that it does capture the different impacts of a wide variety of land uses. It's also adaptable, so developers can work with staff if they believe their development's trip generation characteristics don't align with the characteristics in the schedule. And individual assessment guidelines are provided in the CIP. It's also relatively simple to update for future iterations, as it leverages regional data from Compass and national data in the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. And then finally, as Rob alluded to, it meets Idaho Code requirements and is a proven methodologies used by other agencies in Idaho. So now I'll start just by walking through these one by one, and the first one I'd like to highlight is the peak hour trip generation rate. So really what this represents is how many trips are anticipated to go to or from a unit of land use in the PM peak hour. The rate and unit of land use is provided by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. I'll use ITE as the acronym. Trip Generation Manual based on nationwide data collection. This is the industry standard for estimating trip generation, and Caldwell already uses this for estimating trips in traffic impact studies. And you can see how just based on our examples, how this might differ for different land uses. And then maybe one other point I'll make is that for residential, it's typically for dwelling unit is the unit that is used in the schedule, and then for commercial uses and office uses, it's typically per 1,000 square feet. There are a couple exceptions for uses like gas stations where you might use number of pumps. So the second factor I wanted to highlight is the network adjustment factor, and this is really just the percent of trips that are on the City of Caldwell roadways versus ITD facilities within the service area. And what this does is it reduces the impact fee to account for the impact on state facilities that are not impact fee eligible. This is measured system-wide through Compass's regional travel demand model and does not differ for land uses. So this would be updated in future updates of the CIP, but would stay constant for the use of this CIP and for each land use within the schedule. The third factor is the new trip factor or pass-by factor, if you've heard of that term. And this number represents the percent of new trips that are generated by the land use on the transportation system. So some land uses attract a significant amount of repeat or pass-by trips. Shopping center is an example. So 71% of trips that go into a shopping center are new trips. So that's folks who are leaving their house specifically to go to and from a shopping center, and then they come back home That other 29% are going to the shopping center on their way from, maybe they're at the office and they're going home and they stop by a shopping center. So you'll typically see that lower new trip factor for those commercial uses. I'll use the gas station example again. That typically has a very low new trip factor because folks typically go to the gas station that's on their commute on the way home. The fourth factor I'd like to highlight is average trip length. And this represents the average trip length for each land use type. And really, what it's trying to do is further capture the impact of development on the transportation system. We started with a base of 9.6 miles. This was obtained directly from Compass's travel demand model for all trips, and then factored down by increments of 25, 50, or 75% to capture typical lower trip lengths for commercial uses. And to kind of help back that up and reference that, we use data from Compass's household travel survey and other national data that shows trip length by land use. And then the last factor in this calculation is the VMT cost. VMT is an acronym that stands for vehicle miles traveled, and this is really how we circle back and connect the impact fees to the CIP projects and their traffic impact fee eligible costs. It can be a bit of a tricky number to conceptualize, but it represents the proportional impact that a unit of development has on the transportation system. So the numerator, so that top number is the total TIF eligible costs. We saw that number earlier, it's about 211 million. And then the denominator is the change in vehicle miles traveled from 2021 to 2041. And that was also obtained directly from Compass's travel demand model. And really that represents the growth and is an increase in traffic from development over a 20-year period. So this uses the same growth assumptions that were used to identify the future year deficiencies in the CIP project list. So what it's trying to do is it's proportionally connecting the units of growth, which in this case is VMT, with the cost of projects needed to address the deficiencies caused by that growth. So again, the four factors on the left side of the screen, or rather 5 factors, are multiplied together, and that's how you get the resulting traffic impact fee. So as you can see, just in terms of what's driving these costs, shopping center is the highest number, and you'll notice it has, so network adjustment factor, VMT costs, those are the same. It actually has a significantly lower new trip factor, an average trip length factor, but it has a significantly higher trip generation rate, and that's why it's resulting in that higher traffic impact fee unit. So again, goal of this slide, hopefully just to provide some context for how and why these different traffic impact fee units differ, and hopefully explain why there's so many numbers on that traffic impact fee schedule table. So in terms of outcome and next steps, traffic impact fees are collected during building permit approval, and they can begin pending city council adoption. Right now we're slated for the January 21st council meeting. And then the final item I wanted to highlight is that this Idaho code requires that CIPs are updated every 5 years at a minimum. So just wanted to throw that out there, so that would be the minimum requirement for revisiting the CIP and resulting TIF program. And that's all I had for this group, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I feel like Commissioner Boutros on this one. I've got a list so long. So I got lots of questions for you.
Yeah.
Because here's my deal. When does impact fee stop? Because do you realize that another $4,200 per house? Do you realize the builder and developer don't pay that, right? The end user, the buyer, pays it. And then in the same breath, you want to know how we can't have affordable housing. Do you realize the national average with the National Association of Home Builders, 25% of a house is in government regulation? The government overreach has got to stop at some point. So I'm going to tell you I'm not in favor of this at all, 100%. But I want to know, we have an impact fee advisory committee that didn't even know this was coming to the agenda. How is that even possible? The advisory committee didn't sign off on it. They haven't gave input on it. They're actually really irritated by this. So why have them if you're not gonna listen to them?
I think that question may be more directed towards staff.
No, I'm just started, so,
Thank you, Chairperson, Commissioner Harmon.
yeah.
I appreciate your concern. Our finance director inadvertently didn't send out notice, but I just want to back up a little bit. We did present this to the commission, or to the Impact Fee Committee. We had several meetings. You said 2, but I thought we actually had 3 with them.
They didn't technically have a quorum that first one.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking then. And we gave them probably a 3-week or 4-week notice to provide comments, and during that period, we didn't receive any comments back. And so they had reviewed the plan. We received 0 comments back from any member of the commission or the committee.
You have an extensive letter from one of those guys last night, because he didn't even know this was coming.
Yeah,
to Robin.
and I agree with that. So
This is, you're just went above them. They inadvertently putting it on without them knowing.
no,
don't
I
think that
and I understand
flies.
that this has been noticed as a public meeting in here, but like I said, it was neglected to be sent out to the commission directly until yesterday. So I fully understand that concern, that they didn't know it was coming. But the only issue that I would contest is that there was open comment period, and we didn't receive any comments back for the 4-week period. So
Okay, thank you, Rob. So how much are these fees gonna go up a year? Like, so yeah, 4,200 now, next year, do they go up to 5,200?
Yeah,
I've
Commissioner,
seen these things jump from 4,200 to 14,000 pretty quickly.
Commissioner Harmon.
I'm in the business, so I understand this whole thing.
Yeah, Commissioner Harmon, so I can't speak to directly what that mechanism would be, but I believe it would need to be amended again for these to change. So this will stay the same until it is updated again and approved by the city.
The cost will, okay.
Correct.
Oh, I appreciate that, thank you. And I have a question, I think you guys hit on it, I might have missed it, but, so if a house pulls a permit on Farm Way and pays the 4,200, can that 4,200 be used to repair Canada? Because it goes in the same pool?
Commissioner Harmon, if it is in the service area, that is, if it's in the city, I believe Canada is actually outside of the city's area of impact and
just
city
thought-
limits, so it would not be able to go to Canada.
Okay, thank you. I that's why I think I misunderstood the map that you had up there at first. And then just one more. So is City of Middleton, Star, and Nampa on board with these Highway 4 impact fees? Have they signed off on them?
Commissioner Harmon, so I can't speak directly to how they relate to this one in particular. I know that the City of Middleton and Highway District 4 have a very similar CIP and impact fee program in place today.
Okay.
Follows a very similar methodology. And I know that City of Nampa also has a CIP and impact fee program in place. Its methodology differs slightly, but they do have one in place, and they were involved at various points of this process.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
the answers.
Other questions? Commissioner Boutros.
So I had two questions. The first one is the term existing system deficiencies and how funding or impact fees are the eligible or ineligible divide. I was thinking, and maybe you can clarify this for me. I was thinking that when you talk about existing deficiencies, if those existing deficiencies occurred because of development, as I think is mostly the case, then why wouldn't the existing deficiencies be eligible for impact fee improvements? Yes, you're fixing a problem from some previous development, could be many years before, but is it appropriate to do that? And it could be that in statute you're prohibited. I realize that statute governs how impact fees can be done. So if that's the answer, that's okay. But if it's possible to expand the definition of what is eligible, that gives the city more flexibility in allocating funds to fix problems that need to be fixed.
Commissioner Boutros, our interpretation of Idaho code and the city's interpretation is that impact fees cannot be used to retroactively address deficiencies if they were caused by development in the past.
And so the code absolutely prohibits that.
That's our interpretation, correct?
Okay, fair enough. No, actually, I still don't like it, but I understand.
So that's another meeting you have to go talk.
Yeah. Morgan, this question might be better for you. In the amended code, it looks like the city could initiate an annexation even if the landowner objects. Is this the current situation, or is this new?
Planning and zoning, this is Morgan Besaw. Those code amendments that you saw, not all of them in the packet were directly related to the traffic impact fees. There was a section related to traffic impact fees. There was also a bunch of miscellaneous. And the ones related to annexation were specifically just to mirror some minor changes made by the state of Idaho this last legislative season, where they removed the category names of Category A, Category B, Category C annexation. So we were just sort of updating our language to mirror the state. We weren't making any dramatic changes to what we have existing.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation, but does the risk still exist that the city could initiate an annexation against the wishes of a property owner?
The state of Idaho does allow some forced annexations. So anything that the city would do, we would follow state code. There are very, very, very specific requirements in relation to forced annexation, and the city would have to politically be interested in going after that, and I don't see that being something the city would be interested in doing, but we would always follow state code regarding what is and isn't allowed for annexation.
Okay, that's a kind of an uncomfortable thing. I did note in the text that it said that always comes with a judicial review. So at least there is that check on the city.
It said judicial review would be allowed. So what it was referencing was if it was a voluntary annexation, right, where an applicant said, I would like to be annexed into the city, and the city chooses to say, no, we're not interested, I believe that those do not qualify for judicial review. Whereas if it's a city-initiated annexation, then yes, it would qualify for judicial review.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from commissioners?
I don't know if we can answer this, but if we did not adopt the traffic impact fee as presented, singling out this single-family home for $4,000, if we don't adopt this, is the cost to build that house going to change much?
Commissioner
I don't know if you can answer that or not.
that's not a question that I feel comfortable answering.
Thank you.
Other discussion, or questions, rather? All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And Morgan, you had the follow-up part of a presentation, or no?
Yes, I would be happy to go through the remainder of the code amendment. So this application had two parts, the comp plan amendment and the zoning ordinance amendment. And the reason this is a comp plan amendment is because state statute requires that your comprehensive plans adopt your impact fees. So the only amendment to the comp plan would be to adopt this new traffic impact fee. The zoning ordinance text amendment was much broader, although most of them were rather minor in nature. So we covered the one already related to annexation, and it was really just to bring us into alignment with some changes to verbiage that the state adopted. The second would be clerical changes to the reference to Planning and Zoning Department and Planning and Zoning Director. This last year, our department actually changed our name to Community Development Department, so there's some clerical changes, removing Planning and Zoning Department or Planning and Zoning Director. There's the creation of the new code section for development impact fees to accommodate the adoption of the traffic impact fees that were discussed that evening in depth. We do have another section of code that does allow for impact fees, but currently we only have police, fire, and parks. There's the creation of a new business licensing section of code. The current business permitting code is very minimal and does not provide staff sufficient direction. So this will be changing the language from business permitting to business licensing and filling it out a little bit more so staff has more direction on implementing that program. creation of an alternative methods of compliance code section. There is currently an alternative method of compliance section in our landscaping code, but we wanted to relocate it outside of the landscaping code so that, you know, it was more apparent that it could be used for more issues than just making modifications to landscaping, and then to provide text on what specifically people could request alternative methods of compliance for. And so this new code section states that you could request alternative methods of compliance for off-street parking standards, fencing, landscaping buffering and screening, design review, site design and development standards, mixed-use districts, overlay districts, specific use provisions, multifamily development standards, and other articles as deemed determined by the Community Development Director. You can see where we changed it to Community Development. To qualify for alternative compliance, you would have to meet one of the following criteria: that either topography, soil, vegetation, an unusually shaped lot, or other site conditions exist that make full compliance impossible or impractical, safety considerations making alternative compliance desirable, other regulatory agencies or departments having jurisdiction or requiring designs that conflict with the articles noted above. An alternative design method would provide additional environmental quality benefits, that the proposed alternatives include innovative design features based on smart growth principles, or when a project contains deed-restricted affordable housing. Let's see, creation of a performance bonding code section would be another new code section. Currently, the City Engineering Department does allow bonding of certain improvements through the subdivision process. However, Planning and Zoning Department, Community Development Department, desires to have a performance bonding process of our own to ensure that required improvements that are not going through the subdivision process can also be insured. For example, a single lot PUD that's not going through the process, or business licensing. Someone comes in for a business license, they need to do improvements. Potentially it's the middle of winter, they need to defer those till the spring so they can open. We do want to allow people to defer those improvements because we realize we have a winter, but we also want to make sure that when it's spring, you know, we have a way to come back and guarantee that those improvements happen without having to go through a long code enforcement process. And so requiring bonding would really help us ensure that those improvements were made. And I feel like that is really everything that was in there for the code amendments. The reason that we chose to put all these sort of miscellaneous assorted amendments in there while we were opening up the code specifically for development impact fees is because 90% of this was all in the same chapter. And since it is convenient to open only one chapter at a time, we just thought we would do a lot of these at once. As you know, we've been looking at the code for the last few months, and we're planning on making these changes anyways. But this way, hopefully, we don't have to open up Article 10, Chapter 3 in this next round of amendments.
Thank you.
I just got one question.
Commissioner Harmon.
If this is a two-part thing, can we approve one part of this and deny the other part?
You could. So the only thing, I'm assuming that you're referencing if you wanted to deny traffic impact fees, you would probably deny the comp plan, but approve the zoning ordinance text amendments, but just removing that one particular, actually, we kind of want to move that whole code section anyways, because it also includes parks, police, and fire. I'd have to look at it actually for a second to see if, even if we adopted all the code, if it just says that we can adopt traffic impact fees, we're not obligated to, so you could just adopt the ZOA and then deny the comp plan amendment.
Okay, I just wanted to check.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Anything else related to traffic impact fees, I'd probably defer. I know you had one question that was something to the effect of, you know, what does happen if we don't adopt these fees? And I think that question would be better deferred to one of my colleagues in engineering. I feel like someone asked that before I started talking.
Yeah.
Chairman, Commission, I may be a little biased on this. I am a proponent of impact fees, and that's because I deal with the traffic complaints and all the issues that we have. And so not, in my opinion, not approving the impact fees and not adopting that as a city would be a big mistake. You'd see the perpetual traffic problems, you'd see them perpetuate over time. You'd see other cities having better road systems than us because they have these adopted, and then you'd see Caldwell falling behind. That's, in my opinion, what would happen over time.
Rob, just for clarity, so currently we have mitigation fee, like part of, this would offset that, right? So there,
Yeah, this would take the place of the
so
mitigation.
the reality is, you know, it's getting paid for somewhere, right? We have to have the roads, and so it's getting paid for either through our current mitigation process or through this formulaic process. But I mean, there's fees there that developers are accruing, and to the point made by Commissioner Harmon, inevitably it's going to get pushed to the consumer. But I mean, they're currently being pushed through the consumer.
Yeah, and if I could just add on that, I do apologize that this meeting wasn't noticed well to the committee. Coming to planning and zoning is actually just kind of a technicality simply because it happens to be in the planning and zoning code. Normally, it would just go straight to city council, and we debated for a while whether it needed to even come to planning and zoning or not. But ultimately, we decided to bring it to planning and zoning. The roads have to get built, right? And so there's a philosophy. Do you want the taxpayers to build the roads, or do you want new development moving into the area to pay for the road improvements? And that's what the impact fee is. It requires new developments that are coming to build. It requires them to pay these fees up front to the city so that we can put together these road projects and get roads completed. If we don't do that, if the new developments aren't paying their share, then there is a burden that falls onto every taxpayer to build roads in areas where there may be new development going in, and that's not really a fair way to do it. And so the city doesn't have funding anyway to go out and build roads. We have to make the developers do it, and this is the mechanism that makes it clean and easy so that we're not wasting a lot of staff time, and it's fair for all the new development. Every new developer is treated the same way to contribute to the transportation system.
I got one more.
Commissioner Harmon.
Rob, didn't you say earlier, though, on in it, that the developments are paying for their portion of the road, correct, right now?
Yeah, so.
So they are already paying for the growth.
So they have to pay, every development has to build their own frontage.
Yeah.
No matter what, right? They gotta do their curb, gutter, and sidewalk. They gotta widen the road so that the road in front of their property meets the standard that classification of road is. If developments only did that, you'd never have intersections completed, you'd never get roundabouts, you'd never get traffic signals, because they don't really know a single development to come in and build a traffic signal or a roundabout. That's $3 or $4 million, and they're not gonna do it. And you'll never get development because they can't afford that, and it doesn't pencil for them. And so the way we do it is every development pools money in addition to their frontage, and then we take all that, and then we as the city can orchestrate larger projects, corridor projects on, Ustick Road or Farmway Road or whatever. And that's how we do it. We take those funds and we can put them together and do big projects. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Thanks.
So I have a question about this issue of the committee not being notified. Is it appropriate to continue this until we have an endorsement from the committee?
I can give you my opinion, and maybe the committee wouldn't be. I would say really the big meeting is the council meeting. That's where council is going to deliberate. That's where they're going to look at what the fees are, and they're going to decide if those are appropriate or not. And so if the committee wanted to be at this meeting, we could bring it back again to planning and zoning. I don't know how helpful that is. I mean, if they had comments, they could just submit those directly to us, and we could make sure those are presented to council when we go to council. And so really, at the end of the day, it's up to you. You can choose to approve it or recommend it onto city council. If the committee really feels like that this was an injustice, then we can renotice it and we can do this again.
So, excuse me. Oh, Commissioner. Am I wrong that the committee already endorsed this? They came to a conclusion of endorsing this.
We presented the final product. We requested comments,
Right.
and we did not receive comments. I don't know that there was ever an official vote by the committee saying that we recommend that this goes to city council.
Okay.
But it was presented, and the committee was well aware of what we're doing here. Yeah.
So this commission operates on behalf of the city council, as you know. And theorizing that if this just went from us to city council now, would they be asking the question about the committee and whether they endorse it? I would feel more comfortable recommending that this go to city council if I knew that the committee had actually endorsed this.
Yeah, and that's certainly your prerogative. I mean, maybe, and I apologize, our finance director is really, her and I kind of lead this, we work with the committee. And if we need to get back together, maybe they will have comments now. I think the assumption was, because we didn't receive any comments after the open period from any of the committee members, that there was no significant opposition to the plan.
Right,
But
but
maybe that
then-
was an ill assumption.
But then Commissioner Harmon has notified that there was an objection.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was an objection to the plan or just an objection that they weren't noticed of this meeting specifically.
Yeah, I don't know the full thing of it.
Planning and zoning, Morgan Bisot. There is also the option that the commission recommend this to council and then direct staff to, notice the impact fee advisory board prior to council and/or try to meet with the impact fee advisory board before it goes to council, so that it doesn't get slowed down to come back to this body next month.
Yeah, and I don't think we'd have any problem with that. We're really not trying to be non-transparent. We want this to, we want everyone to be able to comment on it. The fact that it wasn't properly noticed to the committee for tonight was simply an oversight.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
Thanks, Rob.
All right. With the legislative, do we close public testimony? There was not really public testimony, or do we just go into deliberations?
It is a public hearing,
Okay.
so we would open and close public testimony.
Okay. All right. At this point, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Ooh, I think
You
Commissioner
heard-
Wetback first.
In stereo.
And then instead of second for Commissioner Boutros. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, time for us to deliberate.
Obviously, I feel a little strong on impact fees. I don't know. It's a tough one. I get it. I know why you guys need it. I know why it needs to be there. I'm not against impact fees. I'm against that it just constantly, every little thing keeps getting nickeled and dimed with an impact fee, and now nobody knows, and everybody blames the builder or developer on why these houses are so expensive. We're not gonna, absorb those impact fees. They're gonna be pushed on. So, I get it. I think from what I've heard a little bit is that they feel like it needs a little more work done to it, but I don't know that for fact. So, I would like to hear their opinion on it before I make a decision. Or send it to council, like you said.
Recommendations.
A recommendation for them to have some input on it.
And I certainly hear your frustration about fees and taxes and et cetera. And the reality is, sitting where we sit, we often hear from the public about traffic, right? It's probably the number one thing that we hear about over and over again. And so the way that's paid for is through traffic mitigation currently or through a traffic impact fee. So this isn't going to go away, and those fees are inevitably going to be pushed onto the consumer. Just kind of, that's the reality. And this seems like a very transparent mechanism in which, a builder gets to decide if they want to build and how much they want to build and what that looks like based on this formulaic approach. And I hear and certainly understand the conversation around the impact fee committee. And I think that it sounds like there's still opportunity to get their opinion. And maybe we encourage the committee or committee representation to provide additional testimony or whatever, maybe through staff report to the council, so that we make sure that the council has the opportunity to hear from the variety of stakeholders.
So here's a potential condition of approval, that the impact fee committee shall review and approve impact fees prior to city council. Morgan,
The
if you
only
have-
thing that I would change is maybe say review and comment on, rather than.
Review and comment on.
Yes.
Done.
I'm good with that. I can get behind that.
Okay.
Okay.
Other comments from commissioners? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion at this time.
So we'll do it.
Commissioner Boutros.
Based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter and upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows. The request for a comprehensive plan amendment for the adoption of a capital improvements plan and traffic impact fee program and the zoning ordinance text amendments to Chapter 10, Article 3, Chapter 10, Article 2, and Chapter 10, Article 9 of Caldwell City Code is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions of approval as presented or amended, and with the condition of approval that the Impact Fee Committee shall review and comment on impact fees prior to City Council.
Thank you. That was a motion from Commissioner Boutros. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Commissioner Whitbeck. Roll call, please.
Boutros.
Yes.
Whitbeck.
Yes.
Harmon.
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. All right, with that, that motion passes. So I'll close this public hearing, and then it moves us to the next item, which is adjournment. So I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Commissioner, I think Harmon.
Third.
Commissioner Whitbeck, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're adjourned.